All right, let's see if I can get this thing going here. Looks like we are live. All right. Hello, Mad. What is going on? You are the #1 comment. Congratulations. All right. Wow. Quick on the draw. Just setting everything up here. What is going on? What's up, Dion? Clint Winton. What is going on? Let's see. Snake pranks. Hey, what's going on? Remember me from yesterday? Yes, I do. Outdoor Fever, Ohio in the house. All right. Tim Wide, what's up? Oh, what's Bobby doing? All right, Bobby, what's going on? It looks like tonight we have another pretty clear live stream. Just looking at my laptop, it's looking pretty good too, which is not too bad. What's up, Christopher? Bobby's looking thick. Yeah, Bobby is looking pretty thick. And he's, as a matter of fact, he ate just a couple runs a couple weeks ago and hasn't eaten one since. So it's interesting. He keeps a really good body condition, even though I don't feed him that much. What's up, Traper1? Let's see. Missed your live videos. I know it's only been a week, but glad you're back. Yes, I am back. And thank you for being a channel member. I noticed that. YLECS. I'm not sure exactly how you say your username, but thank you. Yeah. Tim Wide. Bobby is the coolest snake ever. He is pretty cool. Snake pranks. I got my first ball python. He was in an enclosure at the zoo, and I picked him up and took him home. Nice. Oh, that's pretty awesome. Tony, hello from Florida. What's going on, Tony? Did Bobby start eating less as he aged? Yeah, so as a matter of fact, when Bobby was younger, I actually got him about 1,200 grams, and he would eat like crazy. Every single time I fed Bobby, he would eat. And it seemed like once he hit maybe I'd say maybe about 5 years old, he really slowed down and didn't eat that much. And his metabolism really slowed down too. So I don't need to feed him that much. And he really keeps a good body condition, which is pretty cool. What do you think about the goblin morph? Goblin. Let me look it up here. I think I know the goblin morph. But I don't want to get it wrong here. Let's see over here on Morph Market. Let me take a look. We'll do all over here. The goblin. There is 46 goblins. So let me take a look at one more thing over here. The super goblin. Super goblin. Let's see if it's a white snake. Yes. I think the goblin might be another version of a yellow belly. I think it's just a different line of the yellow belly. And seeing a white snake, that's kind of a dirty white snake. I wanted to check before I said anything, but I'm pretty sure that the goblin is just another version of yellow belly, just like a different line of yellow belly. Wiggly Finn, you deserve more subs. Yes, I should have more subs. I don't know why I don't have more, but yeah, so I don't know. It's, you know, I actually go for more of the views. I'd say if you actually look at my subscribers compared to other people's subscribers and look at my views, I would say I have more views generally on my channel of 44,000 that I've seen on a lot of similar sized channels. So as long as I get the views, I don't really care that much about the subs. And eventually the subs will get there. Eventually it'll just take a little bit longer. Let's see. Just getting into breeding. You break it down so well. I actually understand what you were saying. It's not rocket science like other channels. Yes, thank you, Jacob B. Russell. Outdoor Fever. Is Orange Ghost and Ghost compatible? So that's kind of interesting because I've actually seen, I'd say most people across the board say that orange ghost and ghost are compatible. So for example, they're both recessive genes. You can actually take an orange ghost, breed it to a ghost, and you'll get a snake that has one copy of each gene, but it'll actually look like a ghost. So I'd say in most cases it's compatible, but I've actually heard in some cases there are certain lines of orange ghost and certain lines of ghost that are not compatible. So it really depends on the lines, but I'd say in most cases they are compatible. All right, let's see. Is it okay to put my baby ball python in a 40-gallon? So if you actually have like a glass aquarium that you're putting them in, really the size of the true enclosure for the ball python is the size of the hide that you put in there with the snake. So if it actually comes outside of the hide, which normally it doesn't do except at night, a lot of times if you have a glass aquarium with a dark hide, they'll spend most of the time in the hide in the glass aquarium. So I would say, yeah, you could definitely put a baby ball python in a 40-gallon as long as you had an appropriate size hide for that snake. All right, hella mad. One of my males will eat every time, even in shed, like a little shark. Yeah. So I actually had some snakes. It seems like you'll have snakes that'll just eat every single time, year after year, and then you'll get down the road, like, several years down the road, and it'll just completely shock you, and it'll stop eating and go on a fast. And then sometimes when they get a little bit older, it seems like they can get a little bit picky too. All right, Silver Line. Hey, Chris, I recently got mites in my collection. Oh, no. I used reptile spray yesterday, but they still seem to have them. What should I do? So, yeah, so reptile spray actually won't get rid of them all on the very first time. What I would actually do, I've actually seen a lot of people use olive oil and they coat the snake with olive oil. I'd probably go to like a paper towel substrate, switch to paper towels instead of any other type of substrate. And then I'd probably change out the paper towels, use the reptile spray and spray the entire inside of the enclosure every single day. That's what I did to finally get rid of my mites. But I say I'd probably avoid spraying too much reptile spray directly on your snake, because I actually use that stuff several days in a row and it seems like it really makes the snake really sluggish. I think it kind of makes them sick if you use too much of that stuff directly on the snake. Snake pranks. That's pretty funny. Let's see. Two Twin Spiritual Shop. Hello, what is going on? Brand new to snakes. Welcome to the channel. A friend of mine has a yellow belly needing rehoming, and it's a baby. I'm going to be its new home. I knew nothing on them. Yes, so that's pretty awesome. Yeah, so I actually have probably about 1,000 videos on YouTube about ball python. So if you need to know anything, you can just do a quick search and look at some videos over on YouTube. So yeah, so yellow belly is pretty awesome. If you decide to breed that, you could breed it to, I would probably breed that to like an asphalt and go for the freeways if I actually had a yellow belly. Aristopole 760. Hello, Chris. I'm new to your channel. Keep it up. Thank you. Welcome to the channel. All right, Christopher, thanks for the advice last night. I got on Craigslist, picked up a mini fridge, some computer fans for free. Nice. Only got to pick up some heat tape and build my incubator. Nice. So it's pretty easy to build an incubator. It doesn't really take that long, and it's not really that difficult. Let's see. Nostalgic moments. I've got 2 ball pythons. Hard to find girls who are into snakes. Sometimes you can find girls that are into snakes, but yeah, it's kind of interesting. A lot of people aren't really into snakes or ball pythons, and like on my a lot of my family aren't really into snakes, which is kind of interesting that I'm into snakes and they're not really into snakes. Let's see. I like all animals. Never had a ball python though. I think you'll definitely like ball pythons. It's a pretty amazing animal. Dean, hey Chris, I keep my ball pythons in a large sterilite locking tub. I want to move them into a rack system, but I'm concerned about escapes. How do you keep yours from getting out? That's a very good question. So it's kind of interesting if you look at these ARS tubs. When I first put my snakes in there, I always thought that the snakes could potentially escape somehow, like pushing the tubs open or something like that. And I've been breeding ball pythons for about 6 years. I've never had a ball python that was able to actually open up any of these tubs, which is pretty awesome. As a matter of fact, when I first saw rack systems on some of the really old videos, they used to have like a locking system on all the tubs. I don't think it's really necessary to have a locking system. I've never seen a ball python get out of like these racks behind me. I don't think they can get out. All right, NY Slice. Is it bad if my 7-month-old ball python still false strikes? So yeah, so I'd say usually that's still in the kind of the feisty range where they kind of keep striking. I would definitely try to handle that snake some more if you can. Maybe pick it up and just handle it. Sometimes you'll actually get snakes that do like they kind of like fake strike or kind of like snap at you a little bit, especially when they're young. And if you actually just handle them a little bit, and it really doesn't take that long, you can definitely work them out of that striking. Let's see. Buy some Taurus mites. Yeah, so that's another thing you can actually try too. If you have mites in your collection, you can try the mites that eat the mites. There's actually Taurus mites, which I've never tried, but I've heard. I don't know if you could actually be really effective with those if you had like a really huge collection, like if you had a warehouse full of snakes. I don't know if it'd be worth it to use the Taurus mites based on like a cost aspect for those. But yeah, so mites are pretty hard to get rid of. Let's see. All right, Patrick Baker, student. All right, what's up? If your ball python lived in a tank for the first 2 years, is it bad to move them to a rack system for breeding? So it's kind of interesting. I actually started out with glass aquariums for all my ball pythons and all my other snakes. And when I moved to a rack system, it was like night and day. Let me tell you, they did not like glass aquariums. As soon as I put them in the rack system, they all went on food and started eating like crazy. So yeah, it seems like ball pythons definitely like a rack system compared to a glass aquarium. So moving them is not a problem at all. As a matter of fact, if you move them to a rack system, I'd probably keep them in there and not move them back to a glass aquarium. Let's see. Got to hit the reptile expos to find the hot snake loving ladies. Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely hit the reptile expos for that. A lot of snake girls at the reptile shows. Joel A, have you ever hatched twins? So I've never actually hatched twins from one single egg where you get two hatchlings from an egg, although I have had a few where it seems like there was twins in there and one of them didn't develop at all, and you get a hatchling that's really super small, like a really tiny hatchling, and then you get this big blob, like this big mass inside of the snake. It's almost like a snake that didn't develop in there. So I think I potentially could have had twins, but just one of the snakes didn't develop in the egg, which is kind of interesting. All right, Shannon 1121. My adult female ball python won't eat. It's been 3.5 weeks. She's always eating defrosted, getting worried. So yeah, so it really depends. So it's an adult female. Yeah, so 3 weeks isn't really that big of a deal. They'll actually go months without food, which is kind of nerve-wracking, especially if you're not used to a snake eating. I've actually seen snakes go for almost a year without food, which is kind of crazy. I'll just make sure it has enough water. And you can try, I would say, just keep offering every single week. And if it goes maybe 2 or 3 months, you can do some other tricks. You can try like a live mouse or something like that. But, for 3 weeks, I wouldn't really worry too much. It's pretty typical for ball pythons to go off of food. All right, Dion, how often do you get stillborn snakes? A stillborn snake. I don't think I've ever got a stillborn snake ever in my collection. I've actually had, well, I take that back. I actually had one that was a scaleless head that was early on when I was actually breeding scaleless heads. And I actually cut open the egg and the snake actually just came flying right out of the egg. Just totally unsurprising that he just kind of flew right out of the egg. And then the next day he passed away, which is kind of unusual. It's the only time I've ever had a hatchling die right out of the egg, but I've never actually had a stillborn where you cut open the egg and you have a snake dead in the egg. All right, solo herps. Any tips to get your female back on feed after laying? So some people will actually give their female ball python a bath after laying eggs. You really want to get all the smell off of them, and you want to go through and clean your substrate, replace your substrate, clean the tub really good. And the kind of the trick is to kind of snap them out of that the kind of the brooding mode. A lot of times, if you actually take a female from the egg and then you put it in a tub, if that female coils up like it's on a whole bunch of eggs, then it probably won't eat, sometimes for a really long time. So you really want to break them out of that, the kind of the incubation mode where they're coiling around nothing, basically, like coiling real tight. So what you could try that. You could also try moving them to like a different size tub or something like that. That might snap them out of that, the brooding stage. All right, Snake Eyes. Butters bit me last night and refused pre-kill. He prefers live. Yeah, so some snakes will only eat live, and that absolutely drives me crazy when a snake will only eat live. Let's see. BR Wildlife Studio. I'm a woman who likes snakes and reptiles. A little addicted. All right, nice. Yeah, it is definitely addicting once you get into ball pythons. Let's see. Jacob Funk, what's up? Like your stuff. From Germany. Nice. What's going on? All right, Bobby. All right, getting a little crazy here. All right, let's see. Constantin, I can't say your name. That's a tongue twister there. All right, when starting out breeding ball pythons, would it be better to invest in a bunch of females and then get the males after? Yeah, so that's probably what I would do, is I would invest in the females first, because it takes a while to raise up the females. Unless you actually get like adult size females and you can breed them right away, then you can get the males and the females at the same time. All right, Jacob B. Russell, can you tell us more about your time in the military? And thank you for your service. Yeah, so I was in the 101st Airborne for 4 years back in, I actually joined back in 1984 to 1988, a long time ago. And I was pretty much a ground pounder, just an infantry. My specialty was anti-tank. We shot the TOW missiles. That was kind of our specialty, which is kind of wild. It's like a wire-guided missile that blows up tanks. So that was kind of a wild. And then I went to Korea for a year, spent a year in Korea on the DMZ over there. Spent most of my time in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. That was my military service. All right, so Chris, last night I cleaned out the whole tub, sprayed the snakes down. Should I take the tubs out again, spray them down again? Or it'll be fine just to spray them down, change the towels. So I find, I like, if I'm actually battling mites, what I like to do is I like to spray everything down, even the outside of the rack, inside of the tubs and everywhere. And keep in mind, the mites will actually crawl out of the tub and on the rack. Even a lot of times they'll crawl across the room. And then once you think you have a handle on the mites, one of those that are on the other side of the room will actually crawl back in your rack. It could potentially reinfest your collection. So if you're actually on carpet, what I would do is I would vacuum every day too, and spray down as many surfaces as you can. to make sure those mites, if they're like crawling out and around the rack and everywhere, you know, just kind of take that reptile spray and spray everything down and wipe it down as much as possible. Because sometimes you can have the lone mites that kind of crawl away and then they'll crawl back and reinfest your collection. Let's see. What happened to Big Red? So I actually sold Big Red. As a matter of fact, Big Red was my corn snake. It was a really huge corn snake, probably one of the biggest ones that I've seen. I actually picked it up at a pet store down in Denver, and I bought it to do a video on corn snake versus ball python. That's why I bought the corn snake. It was a pretty good video too. I thought it was pretty interesting. And then I actually sold Big Red on Morph Market, and it fell through. The guy decided he didn't want them, and then I sold them again, and someone else bought Big Red, and then they backed out too. So I actually sold them 3 times over on Morph Market before I finally shipped them out. I thought that was this was the first time that ever happened to me, where people kept backing out on the snake. He's a pretty awesome snake though. Let's see. How long after the female goes off of food will they go into the prelay shed? So it really depends on the snake. So sometimes they can go off of food as soon as you pair them up, which is usually not a good thing unless they're really good, have a really good body condition. Pretty much the best chance you have for a female as far as laying eggs is when you start pairing them up. If she keeps eating for at least 2 months, then you know she most likely will lay some eggs. If they keep eating until like 3 months or even 4 months, sometimes it's good. A lot of times, so for example, I've actually had females that'll stop eating after 2 months, and the prelay shed isn't for several months after that. So it can really vary depending on the female. Who is standing behind you? That's actually just an extension cord if you're actually looking right over here. I actually had a flood over here. I picked up my extension cord if you're actually looking at that. So what actually happened is I had my water tank on my, it's like a little evaporative cooler, and I was cleaning my snakes in here, and I actually knocked the hose off, and I drained the whole bucket, and it flooded my whole reptile room. And then I realized that the connection on the cord was on the floor, so that was pretty close that nothing got shocked in here, which is kind of crazy. So now I kind of hung it up on the rack. I got to figure out something for that. All right, let's see. Were those snake egg slugs tasty? There's a video where you ate them, but I couldn't watch it. Yeah, so I actually had this video where I tried to eat the infertile eggs, which is kind of weird. I put them in the refrigerator, and then when I pulled them out, they were like super hard. And I tried to fry them up in a frying pan and eat snake eggs. And let me tell you that I almost threw up on that one. They were absolutely disgusting. You do not want to eat infertile snake eggs. As a matter of fact, I saw some guy down in Florida. He was taking he's finding wild Burmese eggs, the Burmese python eggs, and cooking with them. And the problem with that is if you actually use fertile eggs for cooking, they actually have a lot of the veins in the eggs right from the beginning as soon as they lay the eggs. So let me tell you, I would not use snake eggs for cooking at all. They are absolutely disgusting. Yeah, Big Red was spoiled. Yeah, so that big corn snake, he would eat anything. And he got to the point where he was like obese. He was eating so much, which was kind of crazy. All right, Spooked says, is a ball python ever too old to breed? So I've actually seen some really old ball pythons still laying eggs. So I don't think a ball python is really ever too old to breed. I've actually seen one. They had one in the zoo that was like, I think it was like 63 years old or something like that, and still laid eggs after over 60 years of age on a ball python. So I don't know. I don't think anyone really knows the true lifespan of a ball python, which is pretty interesting. All right, Alpha Draconian. Hey, I actually got 2 snakes from the reptile store. and they just started cleaning and bathing them and stuff, awful stuff. I can't stand those mites. Yeah, so those mites, you do not want snake mites. Yes. Let's see. Let's see. Rosy boas can tolerate low temperatures. Interesting. I don't know much about rosy boas other than one of the very first reptile stores that I went to when I was first into snakes. They actually had a rosy boa, and they were actually taking the rosy boa out of the enclosure, putting it in a feeding tub and feeding the rosy boa in the feeding tub, which most people don't do. Most people will feed the snakes right in the enclosure. So I just thought that was kind of interesting the first time I went to a reptile store. Hey, we got a super chat from Spooked. Thanks for answering my question. Sure thing. Yeah. All right. LG. Hey, Chris. Tell Bobby I said hi. Bobby is right here. All right. Let's give Bobby a little camera time. Oh, this is Bobby, my bamboo ball python. He's a little bit camera shy right now. I don't know what Bobby's doing. All right, you don't have to go in front of the camera. He gets a little camera shy sometimes. All right, let's see. Spooked. Can a ball python ever be too old? Let's see. Can you estimate the python's age? So, as far as I've seen, you really can't figure out how old the ball python is. You can tell kind of the minimum age. Hey, another super chat. Thank you, Spooked. That's actually a super sticker. Thank you. So yeah, so you can actually tell like the minimum age of a ball python. You can actually look at a snake like Bobby here. Bobby is 2,800 grams, almost 3,000 grams now. And if you actually look at a snake like this, you could say, well, in order to be 3,000 grams, you probably have to be at least 4 years old in order to get to a size like that. But other than that, you really can't tell how old it is. And Bobby is 8 years old, just turned 8 this year, which is kind of crazy. All right, Claude1234, is it worth assist feeding or spamming AFSFs to females who have expensive genes? So normally you only assist feed a ball python that is a hatchling that has never eaten before. So I've seen some people, they're talking about going to the veterinarian because their ball python hasn't eaten for months, considering assist feeding. And in my experience, from what I've actually heard, kind of through the grapevine, if you take an adult ball python and try to assist feed like a large rodent or something like that, most of the times you'll actually have the opposite effect. Then you'll put them off food even more, which is kind of crazy. So I would never assist feed a ball python unless it was a hatchling it seems like with the hatchlings that have never eaten, sometimes they just can't figure out what eating actually is. Sometimes it takes them a little bit longer to figure it out. But if you actually have females with expensive genes, you can do like, I've actually seen a lot of people, pretty much do whatever it takes. They'll do like mice and African soft furs and live rodents and stuff like that to try to get them up to weight. But I've never really worried about that. My females, if they're not up to size, I'll just wait till the next year. And I just keep offering every single week. I'm not really in a hurry to push my females. All right, let's see. All right, Grazy1. Is there any issues with super scaleless heads apart from the shed that can get stuck halfway down? So the scaleless ball pythons, I don't think there's any problems that we know for sure with the totally scaleless ball pythons. I know a lot of people said, they have like special care requirements, especially when it comes to the sheds with the completely scaleless ball pythons. I heard kind of early on that no one had ever produced eggs from a completely scaleless female, but I don't know if the project's really that mature where people have like full size, like 1,500 gram or 2,000 gram female scaleless, completely scaleless ball pythons, where people have actually tried to breed them with another, like a scaleless male. So that would be, I mean, if it actually came out to where you couldn't have eggs from a completely scaleless ball python, I mean, the project would pretty much tank at that point. It'd end up kind of like the desert gene, which I think at this point, we're not really too sure what's going on with the completely scaleless as far as any defects. But as far as like genetic defects or anything, I've never really heard of anything like that. It's kind of similar to like the scaleless rat snakes, which have been around for a long time. We've had scaleless snakes for a long time, and there's not really any problem with the completely scaleless. All right, how often do you feed Lucy? Yeah, so Lucy is my big reticulated python. She weighs about 100 pounds. She is a really big snake. And I usually feed her, well, I've been feeding her rats right now, which is not really the appropriate size rodent. I actually need to jump up to like rabbits or something with Lucy. But she's been eating all my rats, kind of cleaning out my rat racks. And I pretty much feed her, I'd say maybe like 8 or 9 rats over a period of maybe like a week or a week and a half. Almost every day I'll give her a rat, or every other day, and sometimes 2 rats in one day. And then she'll go pretty much the rest of the month where she won't eat anything, and then she'll go into a shed. And she actually, right now, she just came out of a shed, so she's looking for more rats after not eating for like probably 3 weeks. So she kind of goes through these crazed feeding cycles, and then goes into kind of like digesting, and then like a shed cycle for a few weeks. So it really depends on the time of the month. All right, my ball python drowned his rat in the water dish. Smart, or should I be worried? So yeah, so if I'm actually feeding my ball pythons, I try to make sure that the rodent is far away from the water bowl, because a lot of times, sometimes the ball python will actually pick the rodent out of the water bowl and eat it, but I'd say in most cases that'll actually leave it in the water, and then it'll just really go bad and really start stinking really super bad. So what I actually do is, usually right after I feed my snakes, maybe about an hour, what I'll do is I'll go through and kind of peek in the tubs and look to see if any of the rodents are still in the water. Sometimes you can actually find some of the rodents still in the water, especially if you're feeding hatchlings with live mouse hoppers, and you just pop the live mouse hopper in there. I go through and check all those. I double check them all for sure at the end of a feeding to make sure there's no rodents left in the water. All right, let's see. Michael Rock. I've seen some python jerky claimed to be Burmese from the Glades, but had a picture of a ball python in the packaging. Yeah, I don't think people would eat ball python jerky. I say most of the times the ball python will probably be worth more than the jerky. But yes, I'm sure a lot of people are trying to figure out what to do with all the Burmese pythons that they're killing down in Florida, which I don't really agree with killing the Burmese pythons. I personally, I don't think we'll ever get rid of them. And you can probably, I don't know, it's a really heated topic with the Burmese pythons. And I think if we kill the Burmese pythons, we should use like the meat and the leather and put them to use if people are going to actually kill them. It seems like just a waste to kill something and then just toss it away. That just seems like a shame, but just my opinion on that one. All right, my bull snakes and retics have drowned their food as well. Nothing to worry about yet. Jinx, what is the cheapest rack system you have seen for the money? So I've actually seen a lot of breeders over in the UK. What they'll actually do is they'll take like it's almost like a plastic tote with a locking lid, and they'll actually take like a soldering iron and burn holes in the side of it. I'd say that's probably the cheapest way to go for like a homemade rack system. All right, we got another super chat from Spooked. When you retire, who will care for your snakes? Yeah, so that is a good question. I haven't quite figured that one out yet. I'm pretty much keeping my collection pretty small. I was thinking if I retired, what I might do is just keep, if I completely decided to completely really super downsize on my snakes, I might just keep a couple, like maybe Bobby, and just keep a couple other ones just as pets. Or I could just kind of keep it going, you know, with a smaller breeding project. But it really doesn't take that much time. So, yeah, I'm not sure exactly what I'm gonna do if I retire from ball pythons. I don't know if I'll ever retire from ball pythons. All right, let's see. Why does my ball python smear his prey's blood on his hide? He is like a Hindu war snake. That's kind of a crazy question. Yeah, so sometimes sometimes if you actually do like a frozen thawed, sometimes the rodents can get a little messy. Sometimes you can get a little bit of blood on them. And I would say I'm not sure exactly what causes that. I know if you actually get like frozen rodents in a vacuum sealed container, you should definitely break the vacuum before you thaw them out. I've actually seen that where people are thawing them in the vacuum, and I'd say almost every time that they kind of bleed a little bit in the packaging. So other than that, it just seems like it's kind of random, and it seems pretty rare to get a rodent that would bleed a little bit after you thaw it out too. All right, Jacob E. Russell. I bought quail today and plan on breeding them. What do you think a ball python will eat quail? Yes, a ball python should eat quail. I've actually heard that if you're feeding chickens and any other kind of a bird to a ball python, that they can get stuck on a bird. So potentially, you know, if you actually had a ball python and you said it only eats quail and won't eat anything else, let me tell you, that would be a hard sale. I don't know where you could actually buy live quails for your ball pythons. So I'd probably use quails kind of sparingly. I wouldn't do like 100% quails for a really extended long period of time. Another thing about quail too is I've actually heard like you can actually feed it like little baby chickens or ducks or quails or birds and stuff like that. Kind of the cool thing about that is you can actually take like the baby quail, put it in the enclosure with the ball python, and leave it overnight without any risk of the bird doing any damage to the ball python, assuming it's not that big of a bird. But I would say it's probably safer to leave in overnight compared to like a rodent. So that's another plus of doing like some kind of a quail or something like that. So yeah, no way that jerky came from the Everglades, too much mercury. So it kind of be interesting to test a lot of the different areas in the Everglades. I'm sure they have some kind of like a mercury test if they decide to eat some of those snakes down there in the Everglades. But yeah, I've actually heard there's a lot of mercury in the Everglades. It's kind of crazy. Let's see. Will you pull out the brightest snake you have? Let's see. I actually do have a really bright snake right here. This one is pretty bright. This is Sparky. Sparky just shed too. Look at that. Sparky, that's a super bright one. Look at Sparky. Sparky is a coral glow pinstripe. This is 50% het pied. Pretty awesome little snake. This is one of my males, one of my holdbacks from last year. Look at how chunky. This one's getting pretty big. And it seems like it's almost like a solid bright yellow, which is kind of crazy. It seems like it's fading just a little bit since it's aged a little bit. When it was young, it was super bright. All right, Bobby, what are you doing? I got so many snakes. All right, let's see. Spooked. Is it too late in the breeding season to start pairing today? So technically, you can actually pair any time of the year. But I would probably, if you want to kind of be on track with everybody else as far as, the eggs and the hatchlings and everything, right now I would probably wait until like the middle of October or November to start pairing your snakes. Some people actually do it like a month before that. I usually do like the middle of October and I start pairing everything up. And right now I'm just waiting for all my eggs to drop. So if you actually started pairing up now, you would probably get eggs like in the middle of the winter, which would be kind of crazy. And sometimes if actually, so that's the other thing to think about. If you have a whole bunch of hatchlings that hatch out in like November and December, then the problem is if you're selling like over on Morph Market, you really can't ship them out unless the temperature on both ends is high enough to ship them out. I think it has to be at least in the 40s or something like that. So that's another thing. I'd rather ship kind of like in the spring or the fall to kind of hit the cooler weather. That's good for shipping snakes. Let's see. Would you ever sell your female adult clown? No, I probably wouldn't sell a female adult clown. Yeah, so some of that stuff is pretty hard to come by. I always thought it'd be kind of interesting to buy up a whole bunch of like female clowns and female pieds as hatchlings and then raise them all up for like 2 or 3 years. And then instead of breeding them, you could just kind of flip them, turn around and sell them. And I bet you could do pretty good, although you probably do better breeding those things than just growing them up and selling. But then that way you wouldn't have to worry about, the hatchlings or anything like that. Just kind of buying the hatchlings and growing them up. It would be, I think you could do pretty good. I think it would be even more predictable if you did it that way because you know how much they're going to eat and how big they're going to get versus kind of gambling on the eggs every single year. Let's see. Can you boot Bobby's snoot? Yeah, Bobby is completely harmless. He will not bite. There's no way this snake would ever bite me. He is a super tame ball python. Look at that. Crazy, crazy snake. Yeah. He'll let me do anything to him. He's just so mellow. All right, let's see. Have you ever fed one of your snakes raw meat, like a piece of chicken or something? No, I've never actually tried to feed any kind of a snake anything other than just rodents. Pretty much just all. I've done mice, African soft furs, and rats. I've done the live, the frozen thawed, and the fresh kill. Other than that, I haven't really fed anything else besides those. All right, Jerson. Hey, Chris, is it okay to handle my ball python after 24 hours of feeding? So I would probably wait at least 2 days after feeding. So for Bobby here, what I actually do is I feed him a smaller rodent every time I feed him because I want to handle him every single day. And when I handle Bobby after feeding, I really don't like to. But what I do is I just kind of pick him up and I slowly put him on my shoulder. And I don't want to move him at all if I'm handling 24 hours after feeding, because you definitely don't want to risk regurgitation. So you don't want the snake to move that much, and you really don't want to handle them after 24 hours. And if you do, you really want to feed them like probably a rodent that's like half the size of the thickest part of the snake, a really smaller rodent. But normally I would wait at least 2 days, maybe even 3 or 4 days before you handle that snake. I'd say pretty much at 3 days, you're pretty safe after feeding. G. Jackson, what's up? Let's see. Michael Rock, what is your opinion on hybrids? Good question. So a hybrid is when you actually take a ball python and you breed it to another species of snake, and then you end up with like a combination of like a ball python and a blood python, which is kind of a crazy combination. I've seen ball pythons and Burmese pythons. I've seen ball pythons crossed with Australian Woma pythons, which is kind of interesting too. And I always thought it'd be kind of neat to see if you can actually take some of the genes in ball pythons and move them into a hybrid and make kind of a new type of like a ball python hybrid with a lot of the genes that you see in ball pythons. bring it over into the hybrid. I don't know if it would actually work. And I do know a lot of times when you make hybrids, sometimes you can actually end up with a sterile snake that won't breed and reproduce. So that's the other thing about hybrids. But I'd say most people are really against hybrids and really frown on them as far as something like that. I'd say if you're producing hybrids, I'd say most of the times you're pretty much 100% targeting just the pet industry. You're buying that snake as a pet versus breeding that snake and producing offspring. And I'd say usually with ball pythons, most people are buying ball pythons so they can breed them and then make a little bit of money on the side and have a really cool breeding project with a whole bunch of different genes and looking at the statistics and stuff like that. I think that's one of the big sellers of ball pythons. And when you go over to hybrids and say you really can't breed the hybrid, I think it's a harder sell to sell the hybrids than ball pythons. All right, can a snake have offspring without the male? Yes, a female can actually lay fertile eggs without a male. It's extremely rare. It almost never happens, but they can actually do it. And if they do it, all the offspring are actually clones of the female. So if you actually know, I think the term is parthenogenesis, where a female will actually lay fertile eggs without a male. And a lot of people are looking for parthenogenesis. So, for example, if you actually had like a multi-gene female and it produced through parthenogenesis, all the offspring would be exactly like the parent with the female, which is, the statistics on something like that are pretty astronomical. There's no way you can actually do it. But I've actually seen it, and usually offspring like that have some genetic defects with them too. But if you buy a female, I mean, the odds of something like that happening are pretty slim. Let's see. Let's see where I'm at. Oh, I lost my place. Here we go. All right, let's see. WAC Savage Taco. Yeah, I started breeding ball pythons last year when I was 14. Now I have 29 snakes. Wow, that's a lot of snakes. And 4 albino pied adult females. Wow, that's pretty impressive. When I first started, I had, I think in my first year, I had about 20 snakes. And the problem is I started and I had just all these random snakes. They weren't ball pythons. And I eventually got rid of almost all of them and then switched over to all ball pythons. But yeah, that's a lot of snakes. 29 snakes. That's crazy. One thing you might not know, if you start breeding snakes and you have 29, say for example, you have like 20 females. All those females lay 6 eggs. That's like 120 eggs. You could go from, like 29 snakes all the way up to like 130 or something like that, or even like 140, which is kind of crazy. It's pretty amazing how quick they can multiply once you get a lot of females. Let's see. All right, Rocky Man, what would you recommend pairing to my sterling female? So the sterling is Super Pastel Cinnamon. What I would probably do with the sterling, there's a lot of stuff you can do. So I really like the super pastel stuff. You can actually breed it to more super pastels or even pastel combination and make some super pastel combinations. I really like pretty much anything with super pastel. And then you actually have cinnamon in there. So you can make like the super cinnamon, or you could do like an 8-ball, the completely black and patternless snake with that. That would be pretty awesome too. Let's see. You found your albino. Nice. All right, let's see. Snake Eyes, I'm having my ball python shipped to CH if I die or something else. I suppose I have to make arrangements for that. Yeah, so yeah, if something happens to you, I'd be glad to take all of your ball pythons. Oh yeah, so that would be kind of interesting. I've never had anyone ship me a snake. That would be pretty wild. All right. My ball python has not been eating for months. What should I do? Good question. That is the number one question everyone asks. What is going on with my ball python? And I'd say it's pretty normal for a ball python just to completely refuse food for months at a time. One thing you can actually try is you can try like a live adult mouse or like a live African soft fur. Sometimes you can actually try like even a frozen thawed African soft fur rat to kind of get them start eating again. But a lot of times what I do is just make sure you have the substrate clean and fresh in the enclosure. And usually if you just keep offering every single week, eventually they'll go back on food. And then once they go back on food, a lot of times you can actually double up and start feeding them twice a week for the first month or something like that, and they'll gain weight and be right back to where they were before the fast. So yeah, so once you get used to the hunger strikes and then kind of the increased feeding after they go back on food and they come back right on weight really quick, it's really not that much of a problem. Let's see. Yeah, so sometimes it can make you nervous because they lose weight on the hunger strikes. Brandon, can you talk about egg-bound ball pythons? Yeah, so I've actually had a couple egg-bound ball pythons here in my collection, some females. Essentially what would happen is they would lay just a couple eggs and they would actually retain some eggs and just kind of hang on to those eggs after they laid the first few. And the problem with that is so pretty much what I found is if you even have egg-bound eggs even for one day. So for example, if you actually have a female and it lays like 3 eggs, and then like 1 or 2 days later it lays the rest of the eggs, like 4 or 5 eggs. I found that the egg-bound eggs that are a little bit late, like a day or two, that none of them will hatch. I haven't had a single one hatch, and it seems like they get moldy really super fast and they just go bad. I don't know what's going on with those egg-bound eggs as far as the females. And I actually had one that was egg-bound for, I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks, and she would absolutely refuse to lay those eggs. And I got to the point where I was kind of like massaging the belly of the snake, trying to work those eggs out. I couldn't figure out how to get them out. And finally, what I did is I offered that female a rat, and it seemed like the process of eating that rat, kind of pushing that rat through the body of the snake, actually pushed those eggs out. Because right after I fed her that first rat, she released all those eggs. So that's probably what I would try. If you have an egg-bound female, I'd try feeding it and see if it'll actually take some food. All right, Courtney just got my DJI ball python, and she hasn't eaten in 3 weeks. Hasn't eaten since I got her. So depending on the size of the snake, so I would say if you get like a hatchling and it's not eating, then I would probably go with like a live mouse hopper or like a live subadult or even like a live adult or something like that. But if it's an adult, like something like as big as Bobby, and it's not eating, it's pretty much normal for ball python. Let's see. Yeah, sometimes the temperatures can be off too. So another thing, I would check the temperatures and the humidity. I actually found here in my collection that if the humidity is too low, a lot of times my snakes will go off of food. So the kind of the ambient humidity up here in the mountains of Colorado is like 16% or less, which is really super low. And if I actually keep my snakes at that, a lot of times they'll go off of food from the low humidity. Let's see. How should I set up my enclosure? Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways you can actually set it up. What I like to use is I like to use the coconut husk chip and then have a heat mat under one side set at 90 degrees on a thermostat and set it up that way. That's the way I like to set up my enclosure. Let's see. Daniel, what tags do you use for your snake bins? Blue ones, and how do you make them? Yeah, so I can show you. Those are actually my feeding cards that I just kind of came up with. Let me get you a good one here. I'll get you this one. This guy's eating like a champ. So essentially what I have is so what it is, it's actually a baseball card holder. These are designed to hold baseball cards. And then what I did is I bought some blue index cards off of Amazon.com. And I had to slightly cut them because they didn't quite fit. And then what I did is I printed out kind of this feeding schedule. You'll see here, like every month there's like a week on here. So every check mark is a box as far as rodent that they've eaten on here. Oh, Bobby. This snake is driving me crazy. I think I might have to switch with Bubble here in a minute. But yeah, so what I did is I just kind of, I figured this out on Excel, just kind of made it up myself, and then printed it out on these cards, and then printed it on my printer, and then just cut them just slightly to fit in these baseball card holders. And then I have the one from the previous year too behind it, so I can see what they did last year and this year. So I have two cards in there, and then I put a little bit of Velcro right on the back, and then just stick it right on the tub right there. So yeah, it's been working fantastic for feeding cards. All right, Bobby. I'm gonna have to get another snake around my neck here. This one's going crazy. Oh, Bobby, you're driving me nuts. All right, let's get, ooh, Bubble. Whoa. I don't know how many times I can pull this snake. Look at this. I think Bubble is full of eggs. Look at how big she's getting. She looks like she might be gravid. She's probably one of my latest ones. But yeah, she's looking pretty beefy. And I haven't fed her for a while, so I might not be able to hold this one around my neck too many times. Maybe the next week or two. I don't want to hold her around my neck when she starts popping out the eggs in my lap. That'd be kind of crazy. All right. All right, so I'm kind of behind on these comments, like 10, 20, like 25 comments behind here. All right, let's see. All right, Jeremy, got a snake that has gone into a bad shed. I've recently scraped one of the eye caps off and both eyes are still blue. What should I do? Extremely worried. So yeah, so it sounds like it may have like a double stuck shed. Sometimes it'll have like a stuck shed and it'll be going into another shed, and I would definitely increase the humidity for that snake. One thing you can actually try is take like a pillowcase and soak it and then squeeze it out and put your ball python in the wet pillowcase and then tie it off a little bit. Sometimes just kind of crawling around in the wet pillowcase will actually take the sheds off, so you can try that too. Will you have clowns this year? So I don't think so. I actually just have one female clown, and it doesn't look like she's gonna lay any eggs this year. So probably no clowns. Probably no clowns, no pies, and my desert ghost, all the best stuff that I have. I don't think those three females are actually gonna lay, which is kind of crazy. I should have a lot of bamboos though, which would be kind of nice. Got a snake that doesn't like being touched. Yeah, so I would say most ball pythons, especially if you've never really touched them a lot and they grow up and mature into adults, I'd say a lot of them are really sensitive to being touched, and a lot of them are really skittish, and it just takes a lot of handling on those ball pythons to really get them tamed down. As a matter of fact, with Bobby, when I first got Bobby, he was kind of like that, really super skittish, and he would choke me out and just always try to get away. And it just took day after day of handling him around my neck for probably about an hour every day before he calmed down. I'd say it probably took maybe 3 months, 3 or 4 months before he got like super calm, like this snake around my neck. All right, Tim Goodwin. If you had a rare morph and it died, would you just bury it, or are there something else you would do with it? Good question. What do you do with a dead snake? So I actually have a pet cemetery behind my house where I buried some dogs there. I've actually buried a couple cows back there. One of my cows, I rented a big tractor, buried it back there. One of them, I buried a cow by hand. It took all day to dig the hole for that big old cow. But yeah, I kind of have like a pet cemetery in the back of the house. Of course, I have like about 6 acres up here, up in the mountains of Colorado, and it's like way in the back where there's no neighbors or anything back there. As a matter of fact, a lot of dogs, kind of like I think like wild dogs that kind of get loose, like the stray dogs and the coyotes and everything, they kind of dig back there. So you have to bury it pretty deep, especially for those cows and stuff. So yeah, have a pet cemetery up here. But kind of on the flip side, if I actually have like a chicken that just dies, I've actually had a couple chickens die. What I do with my chickens, I don't really bury them in my pet cemetery. What I do is I just throw them over the fence. And you put anything out in the yard for one night, and the coyotes will get them every single time. The coyotes and the foxes will pretty much eat anything that you put that you leave out, which is kind of crazy. All right, let's see. And I had my first snake, which was an Everglades rat snake, skinned professionally by a taxidermist. Wow, that's pretty wild. After he passed away, yeah, I always thought it'd be weird to go to a taxidermist and mount your old pets. That'd be just kind of weird, have like Bobby mounted after he passed away. I don't know. I don't know if I'd like that. If I wanted something mounted from a taxidermist, I probably wouldn't want it to be one of my pets as far as getting it mounted. Maybe like a deer that I shot on a deer hunting trip or something like that. Gotta have Bobby mounted, yeah. I don't know. One thing I can do is, I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do with Bobby. I'm thinking Bobby might actually outlive me because ball pythons can live for over 60 years. So he's probably got about 50 years left, and I don't know if I'll live 50 years because I'll be like over 150 years. So I don't know. It'll be kind of a tie between me and Bobby who goes first. Let's see. Can you neuter snakes? I don't think you can neuter a snake. I think you can actually like defang a snake where you can take the fangs out. I've actually seen that on some snakes. But I don't know why you'd really want to neuter a snake because they're not really that productive anyways, unless you like had a whole bunch of snakes that you always kept together. But I'd say in most cases, it's not really a problem with snakes. Let's see. All right. All right, Caleb. Hey man, what rack do you recommend for hatchlings and best price? So I've pretty much only went with the ARS hatchling racks, which is like this one over here, and they're really expensive. They're not like the best price. They're kind of like the top of the line. So I've actually seen people, for the cheapest and the best price, you can actually use like a plastic tote with a locking lid, and then like burn holes in the side with a soldering iron or something like that. I'm not really up to speed on like my mid-level racks that a lot of people use for ball pythons. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about doing like a rack review, but I don't really know the racks good enough to where pretty much the best way to figure out which rack system you want is to go to a reptile show and actually grab a rack and shake it because some of them are really super cheap and really super flimsy. And like these racks, you could actually climb on these racks like a jungle gym. These things are rock solid. It's pretty incredible. So it's kind of hard to tell just by looking at a rack what the build quality is like unless you actually look at it and kind of handle it, open up the tubs and see how well the tubs slide and everything. Sometimes it can be kind of tricky. Let's see. I think the egg-bound eggs start dying if they're not all released soon enough. Yes, I think you're right on that one. Which is kind of weird because ball python egg can just kind of roll around in the tub for like a week before you actually find the eggs in there. I've actually had some eggs just kind of rolling around in the tub for a few days, and you can take those old beat up eggs, put them in an incubator, and they'll still hatch. So I always thought it was kind of interesting that an egg bound egg, even after a day or two in the female, goes bad. I don't know if maybe the oxygen flow is cut off from that egg or something. It's just kind of weird that they all die like that. All right, I don't know what to do. My snake has laid eggs. How do I incubate them? Yes, so I do have a really good video on how to incubate snake eggs. You can actually do a search over on YouTube, and I'll show you exactly how I do it for the tub setup. And you need an incubator. That's the hard part. If you have eggs before the incubator, you have to actually figure out how to get an incubator and set it at like 90 degrees. Most people set it about 88 to 90 degrees on their incubator. Do you have incubators? I do have one incubator that I built out of a 6-foot tall beverage cooler, and I can fit maybe I'd say maybe a dozen clutches of eggs in there, which is pretty awesome as far as filling up my incubator. I have another one that I actually got from one of the places I worked at. It was like a laboratory clean out. They're actually cleaning out a laboratory that I haven't actually used. So it's kind of a backup. It's a really fancy scientific incubator, which I could potentially use as a backup. All right, Sarah Wawa. Have you ever had a pairing that went wrong? Yes, I have had a pairing that went wrong. So I actually took Bobby, my male bamboo ball python, and I was actually rotating him through all the females, and one of them happened to be a male. I put Bobby with another male, which was a disaster. It was kind of wild. I was working here in the snake room, and I heard this clunking, and it sounded like the whole rack was shaking, and it was those two snakes fighting in the tub. That was a pairing that definitely went wrong. You don't want to pair up two males, that's for sure. All right, let's see. Kind of catching up on these questions. We got 68 people on the live, 27 thumbs up. We're already in an hour and 7 minutes. Gonna try to go for 3 hours today on the live stream. Which one of your ball pythons is the most snappy and aggressive? So I really don't have any aggressive ball pythons. As a matter of fact, I just did that video, how to get, what does a ball python bite feel like? And does it actually hurt? I did that video, and I was like pulling out all these tame snakes, and I couldn't find a snake that would actually look like it was biting me until I found that one that I used in that picture. But that one's not really an aggressive one. I had one snake that was super bitey. I actually named that one Chomper. It was a bumblebee, yellow belly. That one was so super aggressive. And one of my viewers actually offered to buy it. And I finally sold that snake, which was pretty much the only ball python that was really snappy in my collection. So I really don't have one now. AV says, hey, what is going on? All right, Royalty Morphs. It's pretty late. If you don't have an incubator built up and set up, let the mom maternally incubate. Yeah, so yeah, you can try maternal incubation if you don't have an incubator. Although I would probably advise against it if you're actually thinking about making an incubator. What I would do is, I would put some peat moss or something like that, some sphagnum moss, and keep it really damp and humid while the mom kind of maternally incubates, and then work on building your incubator. As soon as you get that incubator made, I would probably pull those eggs out and put them in the incubator. I'd say you'd have a better chance of hatching with an incubator versus maternal incubation. Let's see. Yeah, you'll also need a baby hatchling rack immediately. Yeah, you'll need a hatchling rack too. Unless you can find someone who's already into snakes. So if it's your very first clutch, you don't have an incubator or hatchling rack, a lot of times you can actually find like a reptile store or something like that. They may be able to incubate your eggs for you, or they may actually buy your hatchlings as soon as they hatch too, which would be pretty awesome, assuming they have a hatchling rack and they're all set up to take baby ball pythons. Let's see. You have to start giving kisses to Bubbles and Bobby. Yeah, no kissing the snakes today. All right, let's see. All right, let's see. I just finished giving my babies warm baths in the bathroom sink. They are going used to it. It's now the third day. So yeah, so technically you don't have to give snakes a bath, which I've seen some people, they give their snakes a bath. The only time I give my snake a bath is if it goes to the bathroom and then kind of wipes it all over its body and it gets really stinky, which is not very often. A lot of times they'll actually go in a corner and then crawl away from it. But normally I don't give my snakes baths at all, unless they're like stuck in a shed or something. Could you ultrasound Bubble next week for a show? Yeah, so I have actually done quite a few ultrasound videos here on my YouTube channel, and it seems like they always tank. I don't get many people looking at my ultrasound videos, and I think it's because a lot of people don't have an ultrasound and they're not really interested in that topic. But it's kind of maybe I can kind of sneak it in on the side of another. Maybe I can do like a reptile room tour or something like that. Sometimes those do a little bit better, and then maybe sneak a little ultrasound on the end. I can do that. Let's see. Yes, I do a pet cemetery. Yes. Let's see. Is the 1,000-gram wall really a thing? Yes. So I found that snakes do tend to fast once you go up against the 1,000-gram wall, and it seems like that the 1,000-gram wall is anywhere from about 800 grams all the way to about 1,200 grams, where they get really finicky right in that range. Sometimes they'll actually go all the way up to like 1,400 or 1,500 grams before they kind of hit that wall. And then usually once they get past that wall, they'll actually start feeding, but it seems like they won't really aggressively feed as much as when they were hatchlings coming out of the 1,000-gram wall. Mount Bobby after he passes. Yeah, I could do taxidermy on Bobby and put him in a museum or something like that, which would be kind of interesting. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do with Bobby. Bobby will probably outlive me anyways, yeah. Can you breed guinea pigs for ball pythons? Yes, you actually can breed guinea pigs. I would imagine that ball pythons might get stuck on guinea pigs, and I don't really know how productive a guinea pig would be compared to another type of rodent. I think a lot of people use rats and mice because they're so productive and they produce so many offspring so quickly. It's pretty amazing. Let's see. Ace of Nothing. Hello, back again from last week's Sunday Live. What is going on? All right, let's see. Joseph, getting my first snake off Morph Market on Tuesday. Nice. 100% het pied, normal, female, 1,900 grams. Anything special I need to do for her besides quarantine? So yeah, so if you're getting the first snake off of Morph Market, or is it your very first snake? If it's your very first snake and you never had snakes before, technically you don't have to quarantine, because quarantine is keeping new snakes away from your old snakes. So no, nothing really special that you need to do for that female. Yeah, 1,900 grams. You could probably breed that one right away. That's a pretty good size for that one. Snake pranks. Is it possible for a snake to choke on its food? Good question. Yes. I've actually had one case where I was assist feeding, and I've assist fed so many snakes, like dozens and dozens of hatchlings. I do it pretty much every year. There's just a few hatchlings that I assist feed. And as a matter of fact, last year I was assist feeding one of my hatchlings and it passed away during the assist feeding, which is really unfortunate. I think you have to be really careful. After that, I'm like, a little bit nervous about assist feeding. I was like, all right, I'm just going to do it as a last resort. And I think maybe I blocked the airway or something where that actually choked on the rodent assist feeding the snake. But as far as, a snake just, grabbing it by itself and then feeding in a natural way, I don't think there's any way that a snake could choke on a rodent. All right, let's see. Daniel, I just bought a leopard albino female. Nice. What would you breed with her? So leopard albino, yeah. So that's a pretty awesome combination. So yeah, there's a lot of things you can do with that. So you can actually do another albino, produce a whole clutch of albinos. That's probably what I would do, because let me tell you, albinos are a really big seller as far as selling them at a reptile show or something like that. And I'd say if you actually look at all the albinos and what people do with them, because the albino is so visually dominant, when you work other genes into the mix, there's not a whole lot you can do with albinos. Pretty much the two things that I really like is working dark genes into the albino to make a really high white albino. So you can use something like the blackhead or the cinnamon or the black pastel or something like that to make a really high white albino. Or I'd say, pretty much the number one thing that most people do is do the albino pied, work it into a pied to make the albino pied. It's pretty much the number one thing as far as the albino. All right, looks like we got a super chat. Thank you, Dan E, for Bobby's retirement fund. All right, thank you. All right, let's see. Dan E, hey, how is everyone? How's it going? Let's see. Jack, can you breed year round, or is breeding season really important? So I would say most people, what they do, I'd say if you actually look at just kind of your average snake breeder, what they'll actually do is they'll start pairing up in the late fall. Usually September, October, November is when people start pairing up their males and their females. I actually start pairing up on October the 15th. It doesn't really matter what my females or my males are doing. I just randomly pair them up. Unless I have a female that hasn't been eating in a long time and it's really super skinny, then I'll actually usually give it the year off. Or if I have a female that just laid eggs really late and hasn't eaten anything, I definitely won't pair that female up. But that's pretty much when everyone starts. And then you'll see most breeders will actually have hatchlings at the fall shows. So if you go to the fall reptile shows, that's when all the hatchlings are at the reptile shows. You pretty much have the best selection. But every now and then you'll actually find like a really big breeder. Usually the really big guys with the warehouses full of snakes, they'll actually do year-round breeding. And they'll really rely heavily on the ultrasound, looking at the immature follicles in the females. And when they hit a certain size, doesn't matter what time of the year it is, they'll actually start pairing up the males and the females year round. I think year round, you could probably be a little bit more productive versus doing a seasonal breeding. Although there's definite advantages to doing a seasonal where, in your off season, you don't have to run around and, ultrasound your females. You can kind of take, part of the year off when a lot of your snakes are kind of in the off season. All right, let's see. I have one male coming to pair with my one female. Would you invest in more females or males now, or wait until I get my first clutch from this pair? So good question. Really depends on what you're pairing up. So if you're pairing up like multi-gene combinations, so for example, if you actually took like, for example, like a 2-gene animal, you bred it to a 2-gene animal, I would probably wait for the offspring to get that 4-gene offspring and use that as a holdback for a future breeder. Of course, you can only do that so many times and you end up with the same genes over and over and over. So I would say you can pretty much buy a new snake at any time, but you also have to consider you'll actually produce more snakes and you have your pick of the litter as far as picking something for future breeding. So once you start producing, you don't really buy that many after that point. All right, looks like we got a couple super chats. All right, Alpha, kisses to Bubbles and Bobby. Thank you. And we got one from Joseph. Super chat question. First time breeder next season. Learning so much from you. Thanks. Plan on pairing that 1900 gram female with my visual pied. Nice. That's awesome. All right, so let's see, we're about 10, 20, about 25 questions back. Well, I'm just slowly going through all the questions, so I'll eventually get to everybody's questions. Kind of keeps from people having to ask the same question over and over, so I'll eventually get to your question. And usually by the end of 3 hours, we'll hit every single question, and usually we'll hit it right on the nose, that 3 hours. We almost run out of questions, which seems like it happens every single time, which is kind of crazy. All right, Big Cat 71. How long do you typically leave snakes together when pairing up? It really depends on how many snakes you're pairing. So, for example, if I'm actually taking one male and breeding it to multiple females, it depends on how many females that I'm breeding to that male. So, kind of what I do is I try to breed at least once per month my males and my females. So, if I'm actually breeding one male to 4 females, I'll do 3 days at a time just because I kind of run out of time. I want to breed 2 females and then give them a break and then breed 2 more females. But if I'm just doing, like, say, for example, like 1 male and 1 female, I would probably leave them together probably for like 5 days, 5 or 6 days or something like that. And then you can actually do like twice a month on something like that. So you can do like, I would say anywhere from 3 days to about 6 days at any one time with the male and the female. If I'm breeding, a lot of females, I have to kind of cut it back to 3 days, which is, I'd say, kind of the minimum between the males and the female. All right, let's see. My blue-eyed leucistic female soaks in her bowl before she sheds. Yes. Most snakes will soak in their bowl before they shed. Let's see. George. Hey, got another super chat. Daniel, thank you. Thank you so much. That's actually a super sticker fist bump. All right, thank you. All right, George Perez, are you coming June 19th and 20th to the NARBC Tinley Park Convention, which this year will be held in Schaumburg, Illinois? No, I probably won't do any reptile shows outside of Colorado. I'm actually doing a reptile show here in about 4 weeks. It's the one in Pueblo, Colorado. I think it looks like it's a pretty small show, and it's the first time I've actually done just gone to the show in Pueblo, Colorado. I actually won't bring any snakes or anything. I'm going to show up. I'll probably get there about 2 p.m. on Saturday and hang out from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday, which would be pretty cool. All right, Gail Leon. I probably butchered your name there. Do you breed any other reptiles besides ball pythons? The only other thing I breed besides ball pythons is I have a couple crested geckos upstairs in my bedroom in a really big enclosure. And I've been leaving the offspring, the baby crested geckos, in with the adults, and I'm pretty sure the adults are eating all the babies in there as soon as they feed. Every now and then I'll actually see a little baby crested gecko in there, and then a couple weeks later it'll be completely gone. So I've actually seen a lot of people where they'll pull the eggs out and artificially hatch them and then have individual tanks for all the offspring and stuff like that. But I'm not really that big into breeding my crested geckos. I just kind of got them as an experiment to kind of play around with them. Let's see. So I was looking back in these comments here. It looks like someone said I skipped their question, but I don't think your question actually showed up. I'm looking way back here. Yeah, so so if I skipped your question, you might have to ask it again. As a matter of fact, that's kind of weird on these live streams. I've actually seen some people say, hey, I've been asking this question over and over and over, and you keep skipping it. And for some reason, it doesn't show up in the live stream, which is kind of weird. I don't know if it's like the keywords or something that's filtering out, but I'm not seeing it. So Bradley Keller says, skipped right over my question, but I don't see where you actually posted that question. So you might want to maybe try to reword it. And I think there's like a kind of the YouTube algorithm moderator in the background, kind of hiding some of the questions. I think that's what's happening on a lot of these live streams. Billy Dunlap, do you ever do the Repticon shows? Yeah, so I've actually done quite a few of the Reptilian Nation and the Denver Repticon here in Colorado. But the problem is now is that everybody wants everybody wants some of my snakes, and as soon as I had some, I sell them on Morph Market instantly. So I never really have enough snakes to vend at a reptile show. They go super fast. So what I normally do is I just kind of show up and just kind of tour and make a video of the reptile shows. And one of the last ones I went to before the pandemic and everything, I actually had Bobby. I brought Bobby to the show. That was pretty fun. It seemed like a lot of people recognize Bobby, which is kind of crazy. Let's see. Yeah. All right. So Joseph says, yeah, I have collection is up to 9 snakes, 4 females. Pretty awesome. So keep in mind that if you're actually buying ball pythons to breed, 1 male can breed up to 4 females. So if you have 9 snakes and 4 females, that means you have 5 males. That's a lot of males. You can breed like, with 5 males, you can breed like 20 snakes, 20 females with 5 males, which is kind of crazy. So yeah, so I would probably not get any more males unless you just want a lot of males. I've actually seen a lot of people, well, what they'll do is they'll actually just kind of rotate the males. So like a male will breed this year, and then they'll give it a couple years off and use a couple other males and kind of rotate it through to where you don't keep producing the same genes over and over. That's another way you can actually do it. All right, Gatornade, what's up? Been watching a lot of your videos recently. Thank you for all the great info. Waiting on my banana yellow belly Mojave. That's a pretty awesome combination. A lot of stuff you could do with that one. Banana yellow belly Mojave, I would probably breed that to like an asphalt. Go for the banana highways with the Mojave in there. That would be pretty wild. Actually, it would be banana freeway. It's the freeway with the asphalt. The highways are with the gravel. Morgan says, I'm going to a reptile expo soon. Nice. Yes. I'm actually waiting on my 2nd shot for my vaccine. Hopefully I won't get too sick on that one. So this is actually the 8th day after my 1st shot. Still feeling a little bit under the weather. The last few days have been really bad from that vaccination. So if you actually watched the video on that, still kind of recovering from that. Doing a lot better today though. Let's see. So Ace of Nothing. I've heard a bit of controversy on this. Just wanted to hear another opinion. People have told me that ball pythons go off of feed naturally, and some said it's because of husbandry. Let me tell you, I don't think there's nothing you can do with ball pythons to get them back on food as far as, you know, changing the husbandry as far as getting them back on food. I think it's just the nature of the beast with ball pythons. It seems like that is pretty much the number one question a lot of people have is how do I get my ball python back on food? It hasn't been eating for months and I've tried everything. And a lot of people kind of trick them with the live and everything else. But you know, there are things with husbandry. So for example, if you have like really dirty tubs, if you have like a lot of manure in the back of the tub, a lot of times they won't eat from that. Or if you have like really dirty water, you can have snakes that go off of food from the husbandry. But a lot of times it doesn't matter what's going on. Ball pythons will just randomly go off of food and you can't get them back on food, sometimes for months. So I'd say yes, both is true. It can be husbandry, but I'd say most times it's just naturally too. All right. What is the best ball python a new beginner should have? And is a ball python a best snake to break someone or the fear of snakes? Yes. I would say if you have a fear of snakes, definitely a ball python is definitely the best pet snake. Mainly because a ball python doesn't really move that much. Like this snake right here, you can take, you know, any other type of a snake, put it on your neck, and I guarantee it wouldn't sit there like this snake for like hours and just absolutely hardly do anything and be really super mellow like this snake, which is, I think that really calms the fear of snake in a lot of people that are afraid of snakes. So yeah, definitely, I think a ball python is the number one snake. All right, Lee, let's see. Leave GTA Online. Do you feel like the ball python market is saturated? So it's kind of interesting because it almost seemed like when I first started in ball pythons that it was saturated. I'd go over to morphmarket.com and I'd see like 50,000 snakes over on Morph I'm like, this is a saturated market. And here's 6 years later, you actually go over to Morph Market and there's like 250,000 ball pythons. And it still seems like the prices are going up and, you know, people are still buying ball pythons like crazy. And I think it's just because there's so many different genes and so many different combinations. And a lot of people are really getting into ball pythons, especially with the whole pandemic and everything. I don't feel like the ball python market will ever be saturated, at least in the next 5 or 10 years. Maybe if we keep going like this, maybe in like 50 or 100 years, I think at some point, maybe the ball python market could get saturated, but I don't think it's going to be for a really long time. All right, looks like we got another super chat. All right, thank you, Joseph. I have a male Mojave GHI Fire Ghost. Should I pair with female visual pied to make hets? So ghost pieds. I'm not sure I would actually go down that road with the ghost pieds. You can actually look on Morph Market and see kind of the popularity of the ghost pieds and kind of what they're selling for. But what I would probably do is I would pair it to maybe something else. So you actually have the GHI, which is a dark gene with the ghost. So what I would actually do is I would probably get something maybe like a het ghost that has another dark gene in it. If you can actually get something like a blackhead het ghost or something like that. A lot of times those double dark ghosts can be almost like a steel gray color, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, so if you actually have a female visual pied, I would probably go with like another het pied or visual pied to breed with that pied to make more pieds. I think you might do a little bit better with that. Let's see. All right, let's see. I just started pairing up my male black pastel to a Huffman Lesser. Nice. Trashman0131, how do you get a ball python to eat frozen thawed when it's used to eating live? That's a good question. Sometimes a live, like a live only ball python, sometimes it's almost impossible to get them on frozen thawed once they've been doing live for a really long time. One thing you can actually try is you can do a live, and then about a half hour later, after it's completely eaten that live and digested it, you can actually follow up with like a fresh kill or a frozen thawed. A lot of times you feed them one live, and sometimes right after that, they'll go after a frozen thawed. But I found a lot of times it's hard to completely transition a live only snake over to a frozen thawed, unless it's like a younger hatchling, like a juvenile or something young like that. They'll eat pretty much anything. You can go back and forth between live and frozen thawed, no problem at all. But yeah, if it's been eaten live for like 5 or 6 years and it's like a full grown adult, sometimes it's hard to get over to a frozen thawed. All right, Annie G, when you are breeding, how long do you have a male and female together before giving them a break? So that's a good question. I normally leave my males and females anywhere from like 3 days to about 5 or 6 days together, depending on how many females I'm actually cycling that male through. And then usually when I give them a break, I'll give them a break for usually about a week. So I'll separate them. I'll give them like a day off, maybe a day or two, and then I'll feed them. And then after I feed them, I usually give them like 3 or 4 days off after feeding before I'll think about pairing them up again. All right, let's see. JM. My female just laid eggs yesterday. When should I cut the eggs? That is a good question. So if you cut the eggs too early, what? Are you serious? I just got a $99.99 super chat. That is a world record on my channel. The biggest I ever got was $50. Wow. Is that US dollars? That's crazy. Thank you, Trashman0131. Wow. That is amazing. Wow. Where was I? I lost my place on that one. All right. Thank you very much. All right. Yeah. So cutting eggs. Let's go back to cutting eggs. So you definitely don't want to cut your eggs too early because potentially, especially if the juvenile snake crawls out of the egg and is still attached to the embryo, potentially what can actually happen on that snake is that you'll actually have the umbilical cord attached from the snake to the kind of the embryo part that's still inside of the egg. And if that snake comes out of the egg with that umbilical cord still attached to whatever's inside the egg, sometimes you can actually have the umbilical cord pull from the belly of the snake. And I've actually seen that almost always will kill your snake if you actually pull on the umbilical cord. So what you really want to do is you want to wait until, I usually wait until I actually see slits in my eggs. At least half my eggs, you'll actually see a little slit in the egg from the egg tooth of the hatchling. And that's usually right around, almost right at 2 months. Usually about maybe a week or a week and a half before they hatch. Sometimes they'll actually start slitting the eggs. About once half of them have that little egg tooth slit in the egg, then you can go in with the scissors and cut them open and kind of peek inside, and then just kind of close them back up again, and then just wait for the snakes to come out naturally. But you definitely don't want to cut the eggs too early. As a matter of fact, I think I killed a snake doing that once. One of my scaleless heads early on, it was like, at the time, it was like a $6,000 snake. And it actually, I cut the eggs too early, and that snake came flying out, still attached from the umbilical cord to the egg, and it actually pulled the inside out of the snake, and it pretty much killed it right away as it came out of the egg. So you definitely want to wait. All right, Sarah Wawa, how do you decide on what to sell at a reptile show and on Morph Market? Yeah, so actually what I do is I hatch out a whole bunch of eggs and a whole bunch of hatchlings, and I'll have like 100 hatchlings that are hatching from all my eggs. And then what I'll do is I'll go through and mark a whole bunch of holdbacks. And I do this every year. I'm like, all right, I want to hold this one back and hold this one back. And I'll get to the point where I'll have like a dozen holdbacks. I'm going to just keep them all because I have so many awesome snakes. And the problem is I don't really want to expand my collection that much where I really want to expand out of this room. So I pretty much got to the point where I decided, all right, every year I only want to hold back 2 snakes, which is so hard because I have so many awesome combinations. And this last year it was even harder because I have so many females now. I've been holding back all my females that I'm running out of males, and I had to hold back just 2 males from last year to use as breeders to breed through some of my females. So yeah, it's always hard to figure out what to sell, at and what to keep. And especially if you're doing like a reptile show, what I would probably do is yeah, so I used to only sell at reptile shows, and I think it's a little bit easier if you only sell at the reptile shows because you can basically hold everything back that you're producing. And then when you go to the reptile show, you have a really nice collection of snakes. You'll have like, I actually had, like 60 display cases that I could put on an 8-foot table. And sometimes I'd actually double up in there. So I'd have like 70 or 80 snakes at a reptile show. It was really impressive. Versus, if I'm selling a morph market and try to do a reptile show at the same time, I probably wouldn't have that many snakes for a reptile show. All right, let's see. Snake eyes. Bob Clark is some of the biggest reticulated pythons I've seen in my life. Massive bone crushers. Yeah. Yeah, so those are pretty big. So yeah, I've actually seen some really big reticulated pythons. There's actually one. If you actually go on YouTube and search for Twinkie, the reticulated python, that's actually one of the biggest ones that I've ever seen. As a matter of fact, I think that one it's actually passed away already, but it's one of the older videos. That thing was massive. I think they have like 8 people holding that thing all in a line. It's almost too much for one person to handle. It's a pretty amazing thing. Yeah, I don't sell at shows anymore. Yeah, so unfortunately, I do like to go to the shows though, but yeah, I really don't sell at the shows anymore. All right, let's see. What female should I add to my collection next? I have a female normal, 2 males, banana Mojave, and a pastel inchy orange ghost. I prefer 2 gene animal is Thanksgiving. Let's see. So yeah, so orange ghost and a normal female. So with your banana Mojave, there's a lot of things you can do with that. So with the banana, I actually like to use a lot of like the pattern enhancing genes. I would probably go with something like the leopard or the Enchi. The banana Enchis is definitely one of my favorite. I like the banana super Enchi. That one's pretty awesome. And then with the orange ghost, I actually have a pastel Enchi orange ghost. I would probably breed with another orange ghost. I definitely love the orange ghost stuff. And the orange ghost stuff seems really inexpensive too compared to a lot of the other recessives. So you could probably pick up like an orange ghost with a bunch of other genes in it. Pretty inexpensive, I would think. Let's see. All right, Alpha. Tell my husband at what age can he start to breed the female and male so he knows for sure it's his first time ever. So yeah, so when you're actually breeding ball pythons, it's not really about the age. You really want to go with the weight of the snake. So a lot of people will say that the males have to be at least 500 grams. I would probably wait until your males are probably about 800 grams, at least 700 or 800 grams before you breed them. I've actually tried to breed some males after 1 year when they're like 450 or 500 grams, and it seems like every year, every time I try to do that, maybe about half the time, it ends up being a bust where those males won't breed the females. So I'd say probably 2 years old on the males, and make sure they're probably, I'd say about at least 600 or 700 grams, somewhere in there, to make sure that they're good size. And then females, pretty much you have to make sure they're at least 1,500 grams. I've seen some people, in a very rare cases, I've seen some that are 1,500 grams after 1 year, which is pretty unusual. I'd say most of the times, you know, females are at least 2 or 3 years before they'll hit the 1,500 gram mark. So that's pretty much the minimum for the males and the females. Let's see. Yeah, age doesn't really matter. So yeah, some people, what they'll actually do on their males, if you're really handy popping the hemipines, they'll actually pop the hemipines and look for that waxy buildup on the hemipines. And a lot of times that'll indicate that the males are ready to breed. But I would prefer 2 years on my males before you breed them. Shelly, I have a Boll Python that is 990 grams. She stopped eating months ago. Should I be concerned? Yeah, so that is probably the 1,000-gram wall. I actually have my scaleless heads are kind of up against that right now. They're really super picky. Every now and then I'll actually try to do like a live rodent, and every now and then they'll eat it, but a lot of times they'll just go off of food right about 1,000 grams. You just have to keep offering every week, and they'll eventually go back on food. So yeah, it's just one of those things with ball pythons. Just make sure the substrate's clean, make sure your spot clean really good, make sure your temperature and humidity is fine, and then just keep offering every single week, and they will eventually go back on food. I haven't really heard of anyone where they had a ball python that'll completely go off of food and starve itself to death. It'll eventually go back on food. Let's see. Daniel, people get stuck on pairing ball pythons when those males can spread the love. Yeah. So you can use one male for multiple females. Yeah. Let's see. My ball python has keyholes and alien heads. Is it a Mojave? So, I'd have to actually see what it looks like, but usually if it has like keyholes, a lot of times it will be a Mojave. A lot of times with the Mojaves, it'll actually have kind of a darker background with the Mojaves too. So it possibly could be a Mojave. Fez Boys, how big should a ball python be at 2 years old in length? So that is a very good question. I'd say most people don't measure the length of their ball pythons. Most people measure the weight of a ball python. And I haven't really done a lot of length measurements to know how long it should actually be. So I'd say at 2 years, as far as a weight, they should be anywhere from, I'd say, maybe about 800 to about 1,500 grams at about 2 years, kind of the extremes from one end to the other as far as what I've seen. All right, Jacob E. Russell, what would you cross with an albino champagne? Wow, that's a pretty wild combination. Is that a white snake? I'm gonna look that up. Albino, let's see, albino. All right, I'm coming over here to Morph Market. I'm gonna look this one up. Albino champagne. That's an interesting snake. It's kind of yeah, albino champagne. It's kind of a yellow, almost a patternless snake, which is pretty wild with red eyes. That's a pretty cool combination. So albino champagne, what I would actually do with that one, you could take that one and breed it to a pied, and you would actually get all your champagnes would be champagne het pieds, which would actually look like visual pieds. So that would be pretty awesome because you'd actually have snakes that look like pieds, but they would actually be champagne het pieds and het for albino. So those might sell pretty good, and they'd have a pretty interesting look to them. So that's probably what I would do with that combination. All right, Dan E. I saw the most amazing morph on Morph Market last night, and I want to make it the banana 8-ball, yellow with purple undertones. Yes, so so anything with banana that ends up being purple, keep in mind most of the purple with the bananas is only there as a juvenile. Once they age and mature, most of the bananas will completely lose all the purple. So that's the other thing you have to keep in mind with the bananas. Let's see. Ace of nothing. Would a snake know if it's starving itself sitting under an overly heated lamp or other forms of harm? Yeah, so if you actually have like an overheated hot rock or like a too hot of a heat lamp, I don't think a ball python really knows to get away from the heat if it overheats. I've actually seen, especially if you go to like a lot of the reptile forums, seems like the number one problem that a lot of people have is putting a ball python on a heat rock to where it burns the belly of the snake. And I don't think the snake really feels the pain of getting too hot on the belly, and it actually burns the bottom of the snake. So you have to really be careful that you don't overheat from a heat lamp or a heat rock on your ball pythons. All right, so we are at 1 hour 49 minutes, 74 people on the live stream, 45 thumbs up. All right. All right, Big Dave, could you briefly explain hets, specifically than clown? I had a male clown and put him to a normal female. What is the ratio of hets? Or the whole clutch considered hets? So yeah, so so essentially what het is one copy of the gene of a recessive gene, but you actually can't see the one copy of the gene. So for example, this snake around my neck, this is a pinstripe. And if I actually took a pinstripe and I bred it to a normal, half the offspring would come out as pinstripe, half would come out as normal. And you can actually see the difference between the pinstripes and the normals. But if you actually took a het clown, which contains one copy of the clown gene, it's kind of like having a pinstripe, but you can't see the pinstripe. It's almost like the hidden gene that's called the het clown, just one copy of the clown gene. So if you actually took a het clown, you bred it to something else, half the offspring would contain one copy of the clown, half the offspring would not contain one copy. And you couldn't tell the difference between the hets and the ones that weren't het for clown. So they call it 50% het because there's a 50% chance of any one snake actually getting one copy of the clown gene. And it can actually be pretty frustrating because essentially what you're doing is you're kind of diluting the hets the further you breed them, and you kind of spread them through your collection. We actually take some of those 50% hets, you breed it to something else, and then it's possible het, and then you breed it to something else, and pretty soon you're just dropping the hets. And then if you actually are working on another, like a really high-end project, sometimes you can randomly breed two snakes together and pop out a clown because you have this hidden gene kind of floating around in your collection, which I actually found out I had desert ghost in some of my snakes, which I didn't realize were actually floating around in my collection. Let's see. All right, Gatorade, thanks for your asphalt suggestion. I wanted to get into breeding once I'm fully prepared. Struggling to tell apart morphs. Any idea on how to learn them? Yeah, you just have to learn one gene at a time. It takes quite a while to learn all the genes. I think I've pretty much done almost every single of the most popular genes in ball pythons as far as making a video. So pretty much any gene that you're thinking about getting into, you can just search YouTube. You can just search for that gene. If you want a video from me, you can actually put my name in the search too, and you'll pull up. Sometimes some of my old videos are kind of rough on some of those old that are like 2 or 3 years old when I first started doing like morph reviews. But I pretty much did morph reviews on most of the most popular genes. Oh wow, my phone freaked out again. I don't know why it does that. It just disconnects and then it says reconnected and then just kind of stays right on the live stream, which is kind of wild that it can do that. Let's see. Hey Chris, my ball python is definitely big enough to breed. She's over 2,000 grams. We've had her around 10 successful locks since October. She hasn't laid eggs or shown any sign of being gravid. Any ideas? So if you paired like in October, if the snake is off of food, if it's been off of food for a couple months, you still have a chance of that snake still laying eggs. I'd say, as a matter of fact, I've been pairing up since mid-October. I don't have any eggs from any of my snakes yet. I'm thinking here maybe in the next couple weeks I'll actually start getting eggs. So it's still pretty early for eggs. And keep in mind, you can actually get eggs all the way into late summer with that female. So I wouldn't give up hope just yet. What I would actually do is I'd probably stop pairing and then just plan on pairing up again in mid-October. And then if you get eggs, you get eggs. If you don't, you don't. There's nothing you can really do as far as that. So hopefully you'll get eggs. You still have a good chance of getting eggs from that female, I'd say. All right, let's see. The pandemic has really taken a toll on people. I definitely got lonely, so I decided to take the dive into the huge responsibility of owning a Ball Python. I love him. Nice. Yes. If you want a pet for the pandemic, the Ball Python is definitely the way to go. Yes. Have you heard, is there NR Mandarin gene? Yes, I have been looking at the NR Mandarin gene. It's kind of a tough gene to actually identify. I've been thinking about doing a morph review, looking really close at that one. And as a standalone gene, for me, it's really hard to pick out the standalone. And in certain combinations, it's hard to tell if you actually have the NR Mandarin gene in the mix. But I've actually seen really amazing combinations. If you actually mix it in with the right genes, it can make some really impressive combinations. And it seems like it's a really expensive gene too. So that one is definitely on my list, the NR Mandarin gene. I've been kind of doing a little bit of research on the side with that one, but yeah, that one's pretty awesome. Manitou Ghost, do you probe or pop your snakes? So pretty much 99% of the time, I actually probe them with a metal probe. And what I actually do is I take a metal probe and I put it right in the tail pocket, right in the bottom underneath the snake. And if it goes in the pocket of the snake, if it goes just shallow, just a little bit, then it's a female. If it goes really deep, then it's a male. And I have popped a couple before, but my veterinarian says you really shouldn't pop Ball Python trying to pop out the hemipines to figure out if it's a male or female, because if you don't know what you're doing, you can put too much pressure on there and potentially hurt the spine of the snake. Yes, I probe them. Yeah, pretty much. It's a little bit tricky probing them because you have to really have your snake relaxed, completely relaxed, in order to get that probe completely in there. It's a little bit tricky, but I'd say if you actually look at the difference between popping and probing, I would say popping is faster. If you know how to pop the hemipines out, it's a lot faster. But probing, I'd say, is more accurate as far as determining the males and the females in general, unless you're like one of those, I've actually seen some old time snake breeders have been doing it for like 20 years. Let me tell you, they can pop really super easy and it's so fast. But if you don't know what you're doing, you can make mistakes popping out the hemipines. So my suggestion, I would definitely get a probe kit and probe. I do have quite a few videos on probing ball pythons. Yes, I am way behind. I am way behind. Yeah, I'm like 10, 20, maybe about 30 comments behind. I'll eventually get to them. We're like at 2 hours. Still have another hour to go on the live stream. 82 people on the live stream. 53 thumbs up. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Bobby is living the life around your shoulders. Seems so relaxed. Yes, this is Bubbles. This is Bubbles. It seems like Bubbles is even more calm than Bobby, which is kind of wild. Hamza, greetings. One of my ball pythons has this really bad issue. Every time we handle him, he poops or pees. That is unusual, I would say, extremely unusual. I've been holding ball pythons for a long. I'd say it's. I've never actually seen a ball python that will actually poop or pee when you handle it. That is kind of crazy. I've actually seen that with when my reticulated python, my when Sonny was really small. He was like a really skittish snake, and he would always poop and pee. I've actually handled some blood pythons that would actually poop and pee all over the time. But as far as ball pythons, really unusual that you'll actually have that problem. And I would just keep holding them more. I wouldn't think it would take too long to have that snake grow out of that problem. Let's see. Do you have a special or more luxurious enclosure for Bobby? No, Bobby lives in an ARS 7030 tub over here in with my females. He's like right in the middle of the rack with all my other females. I had him in the 5040 tubs right behind me, and he outgrew those pretty quick. So he's in a 70 series tub. And I just cleaned his substrate yesterday, changed out all the coconut husk. What do I think about the NR Mandarin? I think it's an awesome gene. I'll have to definitely do a review on that one. Gother Goat, how's it going, snake lover? How's it going? Royalty Morphs, are you going to do a video when you get your first clutch this year? So yeah, so typically I do a video every time I get eggs here in my collection. I'll actually show you how I collect them and how I put them up in the egg box. We'll actually go through and candle them and everything like that. Last year was kind of interesting because I had my pied female lay a clutch of eggs, and they were all infertile eggs, and they all looked fertile. They were really big and white, but none of them had veins in them, which I thought was really unusual. My super chat isn't sending. That's interesting. I can actually do, I'm actually gonna send feedback here. I got a comment. This is super chat isn't working. All right. I don't know if it helps. It seems like every now and then I get that weird kind of a thing going on with my super chat where people can't give super chats. All right, Alvester McKenzie, why are some snakes so expensive? Is it the type of breed? So a lot of it really depends on the genes and the potential for that gene to make some really amazing looking combinations. So for example, if I have, it really depends on how many people really want to buy into that. So if you have something that's really amazing, and a lot of people are talking about it and buy up pretty much all the genes, and there's not that many left. A lot of times those genes will actually increase in price as far as kind of the market value of those genes, which is kind of interesting. It really comes down to supply and demand. And let me tell you, sometimes it seems like it's kind of just kind of a random thing with genes. Some are really expensive and some are really, I think some are really underpriced, which is kind of wild. All right, let's see. I have a 10 or 11th month old male. Hold on. We got something weird going on with my all right, so this is still working. It's my video froze up over here. All right, technical difficulties. I think we're back. I think we lost a whole bunch of people too. We still have 62 people on the live stream. All right, I think we're still good. All right, Sean Brooks. I have a 10 or 11-month-old male that is small, his age. He was getting fed pups. Going up to size food hurt him in any way? Would it help to grow him a little faster? Yeah, so yeah, you can actually, if you have a 10 or 11th month old male that is small, I would definitely increase the size of the rodents or the feeding frequency. You can actually do that too. So typically what I do is I look kind of like at the thickest part of the snake, like right here, and I'll feed a rodent that's maybe like 3/4 of the size of the thickest part of the snake as far as the maximum. I'd say the maximum, you really don't want to go above the thickest part as far as feeding a rodent the thickest part of the snake. Some people actually go over a little bit and kind of feed like bigger rodents to where the ball python's kind of bulging. But if you feed too big of a rodent, I think technically that could make the snake uncomfortable after eating, which could potentially put the snake off of food if it has a bad experience eating too big of a rodent. I've actually seen that in my collection where one year I was actually feeding my females right after they laid eggs, and I fed this snake. It was a rodent that was about as big as the thickest part of the snake. And the next day I was kind of going through the rest of my collection, feeding kind of all my other snakes, and I had a couple of rats left over, and I thought, all right, I'm going to go back and double up and give the snake another rodent the same size, the thickest part of the snake. And I fed that snake, and that thing was so big it looked like it was going to explode after eating 2 rats that were like the maximum size. I probably shouldn't have done that. And I think that put that snake off of food after eating that much food. And luckily it didn't regurgitate, but I'd be kind of wary of doing too much food too fast. Let's see. You can find a baby normal for 20 bucks. Yeah, I'd say anywhere from normals are anywhere from like 15 all the way up to like $100, depending on where you're getting your normal ball python. Sometimes at reptile shows you can have like a $15 or $20 normal. Looks like we got another super chat. What is going on, Brett? Just picked up a baby female leopard pastel yellow belly het clown to pair to my banana clown. Nice. How viable are leopards? Want to make super banana spider leopard? Yes. So yeah, so no problems at all with the leopards, no genetic defects or anything that's going on with the leopards. I'd say leopard is probably one of the best genes that you can get. It's actually a dark gene and it's a pattern enhancing gene that can really jumble up the pattern in a lot of your combinations. I actually like to mix leopard with, you can actually mix it with a lot of other pattern enhancing combinations. For example, you can mix it with like super pastel or spot nose. The spot nose leopards are pretty awesome as far as that. You can actually do like leopard with Enchi too. That's a pretty awesome combination. Let's see. All right, so I lost my place here. All right, baby Poll Pythons, normals for 20. Yes. All right, Aaron, have you ever heard of the Arcadia Deep Heat Projector? Nope, I have never heard that one. Cole, what's the most you've ever sold a snake for? I'd say pretty much the most I've ever sold a snake for is $1,500. I've sold quite a few $1,500 snakes. That's probably the maximum that I've ever sold a ball python for. Let's see. OSMR balls. What is going on? Snake Eyes, they have a female bamboo puzzle on Morph Market for $3,250. She wants to breed with Bobby. Yes, so I've actually seen those. They're actually called bamboozles, the bamboo puzzles, which is pretty amazing. So maybe in about 2 years, I'm thinking of picking up a female puzzle to work into some of my breeding projects. Kind of the tricky part of that is the puzzles are expensive and they are a recessive gene. So you have to work with the hets and then breed the hets back to get the visuals. Let's see. All right, Andrew, if my ball python has dead shedding on its face, should we try to take it off or should we let the vet take care of it? So if any of my ball pythons are kind of stuck in a shed, especially like on the face, what I'll actually do is I'll go up to the sink, like up in my kitchen sink. That's kind of where I bring all my stuck shed snakes. And I'll actually like make a little bath water in the sink, just like a few inches deep. And then I'll actually take the temperature and make sure the temperature is anywhere from like maybe 85 to 90 degrees. And then what I'll do is I'll just kind of splash some water on the snake. So if you actually have some stuck shed on the head, what you can actually do is splash a little water on the head of the snake. And then you can actually just take your finger and just kind of rub it on the top of the head and just gently try to remove the shed. And then you kind of leave it alone for a little bit. You know, sometimes they're a little bit head shy. And then maybe come back after a few minutes, splash a little water back on the head, and then gently rub on the head again to see if you can gently take that shed off. And usually, if you do that for maybe like 5 or 10 minutes, you get most of the shed off of the head of the snake. And if they have a little bit of stuck shed, what I'll actually do is I'll come back the next day and try it again and just kind of gently wipe the shed off of the snake. You can actually, I've seen some people where they recommend soaking it, but I really don't like to leave a ball python in water as far as soaking it. So what I'll actually do is I'll take the whole snake and I'll put it in the water in the sink, but I'll make sure to keep the head up out of the water. I don't want the snake to breathe in any water because I think potentially you can get a respiratory infection if the snake breathes in a significant amount of water when you're soaking a snake. So that's one thing I'd watch out for too. When are you breeding your triple het albino pied clowns? So yeah, so all my triple hets right now are actually up against the 1,000-gram wall. So if I can actually get them over that, I think maybe they might be ready by this fall, which would be like mid-October, which is like what, about 6 months away or something like that, which would be kind of cool. So I don't know, I don't think any of them are close to 1,500 grams yet. So maybe this fall, maybe I'd say for sure, probably the following year for those triple hets. Yeah, don't drown it. So yeah, so another thing, if you're actually soaking a snake, you want to make sure not to soak a snake unsupervised, especially if it has any kind of a head wobble. So if you have like a spider or champagne or any of the combinations that could potentially cause a little bit of the head wobble or the stargazing, I'd be really cautious of soaking that snake in any significant amount of water without supervising or like holding the head up out of the water on that snake. Let's see. All right. So, Snake Papa, what is your opinion on the green pastel, black laceback, het red axanthic? So, haven't really done a morph video on the green pastel yet. That one is still on my list. But the het red axanthic, that one's pretty awesome. I really like the red axanthic stuff. It seems like there's not a lot of people working with the red axanthics, which almost looks like an axanthic, but it's actually a codominant instead of a recessive, which is pretty awesome. All right, BR, thank you for all the info. You're a true asset to the reptile community. Thank you. Let's see. Benji's Exotic Beauties. The NR Mandarin is expensive. Yes, I have a pastel and our Mandarin. Nice. Patrick Williams, what would you pair with a pastel butter? That's a good question. So remember, butter is actually in the blue-eyed leucistic complex. It's pretty much the same thing as the lesser. So you can breed it with anything in the blue-eyed leucistic to make the all-white snake with the blue eyes. So you can actually breed it to another butter or a lesser. the Mojave, the Russo, the Phantom, the Mystic, the Mocha, the Bamboo, all those genes mixed in with the butter will actually give you the all white snake with the blue eyes. Brett says he loves my videos. Thank you very much. All right. Let's see. Ernesto, I always love the pinstripes. What do you think make the best co-down jeans that work well with pinstripes since it's so dominant? So I really like the combination of the bamboo and the pinstripe. Makes almost like a silvery metallic looking combination, working bamboo in with the pinstripe. I like the pinstripe pods too. They're pretty awesome. All right, Jalen in Michigan. What do you think about Shed Ease? So I actually have a bottle of Shed Ease that I got with, I think I bought a snake, and the guy actually included a whole bunch of supplies in the enclosure, and in there's actually a bottle of Shed Ease. It's supposed to, I think you mix it with water, and it's supposed to help the shedding of the ball python, but I've never actually used it. So I'm not really familiar with that. It seems like just warm water works pretty good to remove the stuck sheds on the ball pythons. All right, AA Reptiles. What would a female banana het clown go for? 600 grams. That's a good question. It really depends on the market at the time. So I would actually go over to Morph Market and look at some of the banana het clowns and look at kind of the weights on those. But I bet you could find out a price over on Morph Market. All right, OSMR balls. What dark genes would you recommend adding to the puzzle gene? That is a very good question. I'm not sure exactly how well the dark genes work with the puzzle. It's kind of interesting. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'd have to actually go over to Morph Market and look over there. But, you know, if you're actually looking at dark genes, you know, pretty much the blackhead is the darkest of all the dark genes. You can use like the blackhead, the black pastel, the cinnamon, or like the GHI or something like that. Even the leopard is a dark gene. The leopard would probably work really good with a puzzle to bring a little bit of darkness, and it would really jumble up the pattern. I bet it would look really good with the puzzle. My message won't even send a normal chat either. Interesting. Linda Thorne, how's it going? What's up? Annie G, hi, what's up? Let's see. All right, let's see. Nate Robertson. My probe is taped to my heat tape, and the difference from the hotspot and the tub is about 10 degrees off. Is this unusual? Huh, that is interesting. So, what you can actually do is you can actually take, what I would actually do is I would test your temperature probe to make sure your temperature probe is working. So what you can actually do is pull your tub out all the way out, and then take your temperature gun, if you're using one of those infrared guns, and then take the temperature of the heat strip and make sure the heat strip actually is the right temperature, that the probe is actually saying the same temperature as your thermostat. So there could be some differences between those. And then put the tub back in, and then let the tub warm up, and then take the temperature in the tub with, make sure you kind of calibrate your heat gun with your thermostat to make sure the temperatures are the same. Could be the differences between the temperature gun or the probe you're using versus the thermostat too. All right, Dustbuster. What does everyone think of Reptibark? I keep finding splinters. Interesting. So yeah, so if you have a substrate with splinters in it, I probably wouldn't use it for ball pythons. I tried the aspen chips for a while, and it seems like in the aspen chips, there's a lot of times there's like really sharp chips in there that sometimes can get stuck in the mouths of ball pythons, especially when they're feeding. And I pretty much went away from the aspen just because of the sharpness of some of the stuff in there. Matthew Christopher says, hey, what's up? I got my hands on an Orange Dream, Yellow Belly, Inchy Leopard, 100% het pied. Nice. That's awesome. Alexis Ward, what are your opinions on using humidifiers? Pet store recommended I use one for humidity control, but I don't see many owners using one. So yeah, so I always thought, wouldn't it be neat to have like a Reptifogger on every single tub, an entire rack, and have it all separately controlled with like a humidity controller in every single tub? And it's really not that practical to do something like that. So what I actually did is I use, it's like a portable swamp cooler in my room here. I actually did a video on it where I showed how I set it up and everything. And I have it hooked up to a digital humidity controller so I can precisely dial in the humidity here in my reptile room. And I found that if I have it too high, it actually puts the humidity in my whole house too high, which is kind of crazy. So I've actually dialed it back to about 52% humidity here in my reptile room. It seems like it gives perfect sheds for the most part. All right, Snake Eyes, could you do a review on the Josie Ball Python? I'm going to have to look that one up. I have not heard of that one. Let me look over here on Morph Markets. There's so many genes. There's a lot of like minor genes that I haven't even tried to tackle on some of these. All right, let me look over here. It's actually listed as a gene over here. Sometimes if there's actually just a few examples, there is 12 examples of the Josie. Never even heard of it over here, which is kind of interesting. So I'd have to definitely look into that one. Sometimes it's hard to really wrap my head around some of these. I'd have to definitely, I'll actually kind of bookmark that one. I'll have to come back to it. That's kind of interesting. All right, Jacob Perry, can you breed a female any time of the year? Yes, you can breed a female any time of the year. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of people that do year-round breeding, and they breed their females when their follicles get to a certain size, and they'll actually look at the follicle size with an ultrasound to kind of figure out when to pair them up. But yeah, you can breed them any time of the year. What do you think about the black lace ball python? I haven't done a review of that one either. I know there's a lot of black laces over on Morph Market. I just haven't reviewed that one yet. Has Bobby ever bitten you? No, Bobby has never tried to take a bite. He did draw blood once, though. Actually, he was like right behind my neck one day, and I think he was yawning, and I actually reached back and put my finger right in his mouth. He got me right in the finger, and I was bleeding all over the place. But he's never tried to bite me, never bit me at all. No problems at all with that. Let's see. Any unusual breeding? Let's see. All right, Earth Central. What would be the optimal temperature for a ball python? So yeah, so I think pretty much the optimal temperature. I dialed it in pretty good here in my reptile room. I'd say the ambient side, the cool side of the tank, probably should be like at least mid 70s up to about 80 degrees, with a hot spot on one side of the tank of about 90 degrees. I'd say most people are like right around 88 to 90 degrees on the hot spot. I'd say that's pretty much the ideal. All right, Neptune, what is your favorite combination? My favorite combination, I'd say I really like the bamboo calico combination. This year I actually produced bamboo calico pastel pinstripe, which is a pretty amazing combination with the bamboo gene. Look at this snake just kind of hanging out. I don't know what Bubble's doing, just kind of hanging out on my hand here. Looking at the camera, which is kind of funny. Crazy snake. Let's see. All right, let's see. Sean Brooks. How many times does a ball python go through a shed a year, or does it just happen when it needs to grow through it? So I found a ball python will actually shed more if it's eating more. So the more you feed a ball python, the more often it will go through a shed. And I've actually seen ball pythons shed almost, pretty much the most frequently, almost every month for like a really young ball python that's eating a lot and growing really fast. And I've actually seen some ball pythons that go on a really long fast for like 6 months at a time, and they won't eat, they won't go to the bathroom, and they won't shed during that time, which is pretty crazy. So sometimes they can go months between sheds. All right, Andrew, is it bad that PetSmart keeps their baby ball pythons together? And why do they always sleep on top of each other? So that is a good question. I would say you probably can keep baby ball pythons together. As a matter of fact, I've seen a lot of people, what they'll actually do is they'll hatch out their baby ball pythons and they'll keep them all in the same hatchling tub until they all go through a shed. You can actually do it that way. And I would say you could probably keep them together. The only problem would be is feeding them. You definitely have to separate all your individual hatchlings in order to feed them. And then if you actually separate them, you may disturb them enough to where it may be difficult to get those hatchlings to eat. So ideally, if you had enough room, I'd say you can actually keep them all separate all the time. But keep in mind, in a pet store, their main goal in a pet store is to sell snakes. So they want them out in the open. They want them on display. So a lot of times they won't have the proper enclosure because a lot of times they don't want the snakes to hide and they don't have enough room to properly separate all their individual hatchling ball pythons. So as far as like a big box store, pet store, I think they're doing it mainly just because they're trying to sell those snakes versus like the full-time husbandry on ball python hatchlings. All right, James, have two females, a Mojave het clown and a pinstripe Enchi. What would you suggest to look for as a male to breed with these two? Yeah, so Mojave het clown, of course, with the het clown, you can actually do like a het clown with other genes in the mix to make some clowns. With the Mojave, you can actually go for the blue-eyed leucistics, like the Mojave lesser would be an all-white snake, or you could do like the Mojave special and make some crystals. That would be pretty awesome. I really like the crystals. It's kind of like a yellow colored blue-eyed leucistic where you can see a lot of pattern coming through the snake. Or you can do like the purple passions with like the Mojave the Mojave mystics or the Mojave phantoms. You could do that. And then the pinstripe Enchi. So what I really like with the pinstripe, you can actually do the pastel or the super pastel with the pinstripe to make some lemon blasts and some super blasts. And if you actually work other brightening genes into that combination, so for example, you can actually do like fire or orange dream into that, you can make some pretty amazing combinations with that. All right, Jenny, I have a firefly, a pastel yellow belly, both 2,000-gram females. What would you pair with a highway, a freeway, or a fire highway? Let's see. So let's see. A firefly and a pastel yellow belly. So if you actually took like a freeway or a highway and bred it with your firefly, that keep in mind that's actually a fire and a pastel, where you wouldn't reproduce the freeway or the highway, but you would if you bred it with your pastel yellow belly. So I would probably do the freeway with a pastel yellow belly and probably do something else with the firefly. Unless you just bought one, then you can actually do either one. So yeah, so there's a lot of things you can actually do with that combination. Looks like we got another super chat. What is going on? Thank you, Aaron. Thanks for taking so much time. Yes, no problem. Snake pranks. What do you think about snake discovery? Yeah, snake discovery. that channel is blowing up. I was kind of surprised that they really blew up on that channel, which is pretty amazing. I'm still waiting on my channel to blow up like Snake Discovery. It's pretty amazing, the channel growth on that channel over there. It's kind of interesting on YouTube. You can just be plugging away for years and years, and then all of a sudden your channel just completely blows up and takes off. I remember when I first looked at Snake Discovery and they didn't really have many subscribers at all. And then it seemed like just overnight it really blew up, which is kind of crazy. The other thing I think about a lot of other snake channels is sometimes if you actually kind of get in with some of the other big channels and you get a lot of shout outs, I think a lot of times that can really drive the growth of your channel too. But yeah, so it's kind of interesting, kind of the direction they're going. I saw they bought a building or something. I haven't really been watching a lot of their videos. I don't have a lot of time to watch videos since I'm making videos every single day, and everybody else is making videos too, all at the same time. It's really hard to keep up with a lot of the other big snake breeders like that. But yeah, they're doing really well over there. Let's see. Danny, I think baby ball pythons can cohabitate for a bit, but not older ball pythons. So I would say if you ask most people about ball pythons, most people would say that they're solitary animals and they all need to be in their separate enclosure. Although I've actually seen a few people where they will cohabitate their snakes together for their whole lives. I've actually heard about one lady who had a male and a female ball python together all the time. And she said she would just, every year she'd just pull out the eggs that the female would lay and then keep them together all the time. I thought that was pretty unusual as far as cohabitating. And I found usually a lot of times if you're actually cohabitating and kind of mixing all your snakes together in the same enclosure, a lot of times they'll go into a breeding mode and they'll go off of food more often than if you were to separate them most of the year. I think you'd have a better feeding response keeping them separate all the time, except for when you're actually pairing them up together. All right, Legend the Bearded. Been watching the channel for a few months now. Only own one ball python of fire, but have a surname boa and a hypo hat. Do you own boas? If so, will you ever have videos on them? So yeah, so I'm not really, I'm pretty much just a ball python guy. Probably won't have boa constrictors. I might have, might just have one or two, just kind of as a side project. I was thinking if I actually bought a boa constrictor, I might buy the Super Fire, which is the all-white boa constrictor. I think that actually has black eyes. I think it's a black-eyed leucistic boa constrictor, which would be pretty wild. And then I'd probably start with a female, and then if I was to get another one, it'd probably be a male Super Fire and produce whole clutches of the Super Fires, which would be pretty awesome. They're super expensive, too. I think they're like, it's like $2,000, I think, for one of those Super Fire boas, which is crazy. Let's see. Andrew, have you written any books on ball pythons? If you haven't, do you think you will in the future? Do you have any recommendation for books? So I haven't really written any books of any kind, for even, you know, for anything else. I haven't written a book at all. I just primarily do videos. I do know there's one ball python book. It's put out by Kevin McCurley. As a matter of fact, I used to have that book. It's like a really super thick book with a whole bunch of ball python information in there, which is kind of interesting. And I actually got it with a whole package deal years ago when I bought a ball python. And I found out that book was like worth over $100, and I sold it on Amazon for, I think it was like $120 or something like that, which is kind of crazy. And I kind of wish I still had that book because it had a lot of cool information in that book. But other than that, I don't know of any real good books for ball pythons. All right, Dustbuster says thanks. All right. Let's see. John Adams. Just got a champagne female and have a normal male, banana pied male, Mojave leopard male. What do you think would make the best pairing? That's a lot of males. So a champagne female, normal male, banana pied male, Mojave leopard. So what I would actually do, I would pair up your banana pied with your champagne, because keep in mind, if you actually have the champagne het pieds, they actually look like visual pieds with the big splotches of white with just one copy of the pied gene. So you'd actually have a whole clutch of offspring. Well, half of them would be champagnes, and those champagnes would actually look like visual pieds, which would be pretty awesome. If you actually make the champagne pied, it's a completely white snake with no pattern at all. So I think the champagne het pieds is definitely the way to go on that one. I think they sell for quite a bit too, almost as much as the pied, I think, those champagne het pieds. All right, Kim says, hey, Chris, I have a new banana male who refuses to eat. It's been 3 weeks. Anytime he sees the frozen mouse, he freaks out and balls up. Not sure what to do. So, yeah, sometimes the ball pythons can kind of be afraid of the feeding process. And a lot of times you can actually try alive. Sometimes that'll actually do it. Depends on how big it is. So if you have a new banana male and it's just a hatchling and it's been 3 weeks, if it's still a hatchling, I would probably try like a live mouse hopper or like a live subadult mouse on that one. But if it's like an adult banana male, which you can actually try. What I've actually found here in my collection, if you find a ball python that's kind of afraid of the feeding process, sometimes you can try to heat up that rodent and then just lay it right in front of the ball python and leave it there for about an hour. Sometimes they'll actually go in and eat that rodent, just like laying on the bottom of the tub, which I thought was pretty interesting. I didn't know they'd actually do that until I just started trying it this year, just kind of leaving my leftover rodents in some of the tubs where I think maybe the ball python was kind of interested, but just kind of chickened out at the last moment and got scared. And sometimes if you just leave them in there for about an hour, they'll eat them. All right, Hustle Gang Xbox. Hey, Chris, we just bought a 2020 male pastel ivory possible sugar ball python. We have a 10-month-old child. Do you have any recommendations for both the snake and the child? So, any recommendations? Just make sure the child doesn't hurt the snake, I guess. If you have like a really small child, like a 10-month-old, yeah, so I would probably supervise the interaction of like a 10-month-old child and a hatchling ball python to make sure your child doesn't put the snake in his mouth or anything like that, or doesn't hurt the snake. So I would definitely supervise in a situation like that. Let me tell you, the snake definitely won't hurt a toddler, especially if you have a hatchling ball python. All right, let's see. All right, if you have a male banana super fire male maker bred to a super fire leucistic black eyes female, will the offspring be all male or mixed? Good question. So when it comes to male makers and female makers, it only is associated with the male bananas or corglos. Corglos and bananas pretty much the same thing. So if you actually have a male banana super fire and you breed it to something else, half the offspring are going to come out as bananas, and all those bananas will be males. So if you breed a super fire to a super fire, all the offspring will be super fires. If you work banana into there, you may not be able to tell that. You'll actually, as a matter of fact, if you actually have you might be able to tell the difference between the super fires and the banana super fires just by the fact that it's a male maker. So if you have any females, I can almost guarantee you won't have banana in the mix. If you have males, it'll probably have banana in the mix. And all the ones without the banana, half of them will be males and half of them will be females on that one. So yeah, it gets a little bit confusing in that combination. All right, let's see. We are at 2 hours, 38 minutes. Going long. 71 people on the live stream, 65 thumbs up. So we have about maybe about 20 minutes left on the live stream. Yeah, thank you for all the thumbs ups and the super chats. Those are awesome. All right, Sean, I've been feeding my snake once a week, and one has been eating every time. The other one refuses to eat for 2 weeks now. Am I doing something wrong, or will they just go through periods of not wanting? Yes, so that is normal with ball pythons. Sometimes they will just not eat for weeks or months at a time. And you just have to keep offering, make sure your husbandry and your temperatures and your humidity is spot on. And yeah, sometimes they'll just absolutely refuse for no reason at all. That is just how it is with ball pythons. All right, Sean, my ball python takes about 3 to 5 weeks to poop and is very swollen. Why is she swollen? So, yeah, so sometimes it takes a long time for him to actually go to the bathroom. Sometimes it could be months between going to the bathroom, which is kind of crazy. And usually, if you actually see a ball python that's swollen, I found a lot of times, especially after you feed them, maybe about like 3 or 4 days after you feed them, even like 5 days, they can get really super swollen. I think it's just part of the digestion process of a snake that they can really get pretty bloated after a meal. And usually after a couple of weeks, it'll actually go back down, unless they just keep eating. And a lot of times they'll kind of stay kind of swollen. But yeah, I've noticed that like on my reticulated pythons, after a whole bunch of meals, they'll just really bloat up when they're digesting the meals, which is kind of crazy. Pretty much happens with all snakes. Looks like we have a new channel member, Tony. Welcome to Fan. Thank you for becoming a channel member. Yeah, if you're interested in becoming a channel member, you can just look under any video, and there's the little join button down at the bottom. And then once you become a fan or a channel member, you'll actually get a shout out at the end of every video. I actually have like an end screen that shows all my channel members and all my Patreon supporters. And when you're actually chatting over here, like Robert Bailey, you can see his name just kind of pops out in green with a little icon next to it. You can see he is a channel member over here in the chat, which is pretty awesome. All right, Andrew, what do you think about Go Herping's channel? Channel reviews, yeah. So haven't watched a whole lot of his videos. I know it seems like he likes to do a lot of kind of the negative spin on a lot of stuff. It's kind of interesting being a YouTuber. You know, there's several ways you can actually increase your views. One of those is to do a lot of negative stuff. It seems like they do really well on YouTube. Although for me, it's kind of like, you know, going down the dark side where I don't really want to be, you know, hanging out on the kind of the negative side. I mean, if you actually look at a lot of news channels, it seems like the more negative stuff they do, the more popular the news channel is. It's just kind of the way it is on social media. And it seems like Go Herping kind of does that with a lot of negative stuff, which is kind of an interesting way to do it. But, you know, the interesting thing about Go Herping, which is really neat, is that if you actually go to his channel and look at some of his oldest videos, he actually started so long ago. He was just like a really young kid when he first started. It's kind of interesting to see some of his old videos, and it's like, I don't know how old he is, like 12 years old or something in some of those early videos. I thought that was pretty interesting. All right, Sean, thank you for answering all my questions. I do appreciate it, and appreciate you taking the time to answer them. Yes, sure. Yeah, I guess that's my job over here on the live stream. Trying to answer everybody's questions over here. All right, Motor City Exotics. What is your process from hatchling to the sale of the hatchlings? So, yeah. So normally what I do for hatchlings, you know, I actually do the egg cutting videos and kind of show that on a video. And then once they actually come out of the egg, I do another video, put them up in the hatchling rack. And then usually what I'll do is I'll feed them for, I like to feed them for at least probably, you know, anywhere from 6 to 10 rodents. Make sure they're eating consistently before I'll post them over on Morph Market. And then what I'll actually do a lot of times, well, in the past, I've been doing this. The problem is when I post them on Morph Market and I do a video about it, I get, you know, like hundreds of people wanting the snakes like that same day. And I'm just overwhelmed with all the people that want the snakes. So now what I actually do is I kind of sneak them over on Morph Market without doing a video. And usually even still doing that, they all sell within like a day, which is kind of crazy. Unless I have like really expensive snakes that are like anywhere from like, you know, $1,000 or $1,500. Sometimes those will sit there for a while over on Morph Market. But yeah, so I don't really have any problems selling any of my hatchlings. So that is pretty much my process. But when I first started out, if I had a problem selling hatchlings, I would do a YouTube video and say, hey, these are all my hatchlings for sale, and kind of go through them one by one and show, you know, I'd actually name them, give them all names, and I'd show the top and the bottom and the color and kind of point everything out, maybe mention the temperament and the feeding and everything on each one. And then it seems like that on YouTube would direct a lot of traffic over to Morph Market, and I would sell them really super quick. All right, Ace of Nothing. My Bol Python's just waking up now. I can see his head poking out of his hide. It's always around 7:30 to 9 that he decides to wake up. Yeah, so Bol Pythons are a nocturnal species where they'll actually, it seems like they come out more at night. I'm not sure if they're strictly nocturnal or if they come out like in the evening and the morning, which seems like if you actually feed them in the evening, you have a lot better success of feeding Bol Pythons. All right, Life of Brian. I have a pastel butter enchi male. I am planning on breeding him to my fire pinstripe female. What that combination creates some cool snakes, and what could you charge for them? Yeah, so if you're actually doing pairing, you can actually search, go over to Google and search for Genetic Wizard Ball Python, or that'll actually bring up the Genetic Wizard for Ball Python, and then you can actually plug in all the genes and then calculate all the odds for all the combinations. And then what you can actually do is go over to morphmarket.com and look up some of the price ranges of some of those combinations. So you would actually have pastel, butter, fire, and pinstripe. So you'd end up with it's a 4-gene combination. So you can get pastels, pastel butters, pastel butter fires, pastel butter fire. Well, and it's actually 5-gene with the enchi in there. So you would get a whole rainbow. Yeah, that's 5 different genes that you would get in that combination. You get some pretty awesome combinations. If you actually hit the 5-gene combination, that would be a fairly expensive snake, usually for 5-gene combinations. All right, 504 Dewey. Is there a super blade queen bee clown out there? Because I think I got one, but I'm not sure. Yeah, so there could be. I would say there probably is. Well, I'm not sure how many super blades are actually out there. The super blades, the last time I looked over on over on Morph Market, we can actually look real quick. Super blades. Well, there's 158 super blades. So you could probably look on Morph Market to see if there's a super blade queen bee clown. That's a pretty rare combination, pretty high-end combination too. That one's pretty awesome. Austin, do you have any tips for first-year time breeder? Yeah, so I would say if you're actually breeding for the first time, make sure you have an incubator ready before you get your eggs. And think about your hatchlings too. When you have to hatch those eggs out, you definitely want some place to put the hatchlings, like some kind of a hatchling rack for the hatchlings. As a matter of fact, I actually had a comment before. Someone was breeding ball pythons and they're like, hey, I got eggs, but I don't have a hatchling rack and I don't have an incubator and I don't know what to do. I would definitely plan for sure for getting eggs and hatchlings. All right, let's see. Squams Jr. Will pet stores like PetSmart and Petco purchase feeder insects like dubia roaches and mealworms? So no, as far as I know, I don't think the PetSmart or the Petco's will buy anything from like a small guy like me. I think they pretty much all run on really big contracts from some really big places that sell to a whole bunch of stores in bulk quantity. I don't think they'll sell anything small. I would actually go to one of your small reptile stores that are local, you know, some like the mom and pop shops that you'll see with just, you know, like a small like a strip mall, kind of a pet store or something like that. Let's see. Yeah, my child and snake will not have any interactions until he's quite older and knows the snake. So yeah, I would actually, if you had a small child and a snake, probably what I would do is I'd hold the snake and have the child maybe take just one finger and just run it along the top of the snake just to kind of, you know, so it kind of feels the snake and gets used to it. But other than that, I would probably keep it away so that it doesn't hurt the snake. All right, John Adams. Hey, Chris, just for the record, you are the reason I got into the hobby. Thank you. I also have an orange dream het pied female and was going to breed her to my banana pied male. What do you think? Yeah, so that's pretty awesome. So orange dream het pied to the banana pied. So you'll actually get orange dream pieds, which is pretty awesome. As a matter of fact, what you could do is if you end up with an orange dream pied, you could actually hold one of those back, breed it back, and go for the super orange dream pieds. Those things can be like a super bright orange pied, which is probably one of the best pieds that I've seen, working pied into the super orange dream. And of course, the banana pieds are pretty cool too. Of course, if you got, I'm not sure what the orange dream with the banana might overwhelm the orange dream a little to where you get a little more of the banana in there. It might kind of fade out the orange dream a little bit. So we are at 2 hours, 51 minutes. We have 9 minutes left on the live stream. 77 people, which is kind of crazy. 71 thumbs up on the live stream. All right, WAC Savage Taco. Hey, Chris, I was wondering if you've ever heard of the whitewash axanthic pied. So, yeah, so whitewash is actually a gene, the whitewash. Whitewash, let's see. No whitewashes. What? I thought for sure there was some, that's kind of interesting. I thought for sure there's actually a whitewash listed over here on Morphmark. It actually comes up as a gene. Maybe they deleted some of the old ads for whitewash, but I thought for sure it was actually, there's actually some examples of the whitewash over here. So the whitewash, the axanthic pied is like a lightning pied with the axanthic and the pied. So that's kind of interesting. All right, Kiyomi, what would happen if you breed a super black pastel fire to a super fire black pastel? And they made a super fire, super black pastel. Would it be all black or all white or a mix of both? Very good question. So as far as I know, the super fire is an all white snake with black eyes. And as far as I know, nothing can break through the super fire. It's a completely white snake. Where it seems like you make other white snakes like a blue-eyed leucistic. Sometimes you'll find some genes actually changing or breaking through the blue-eyed leucistic in some cases. Some cases like the super yellow belly, the ivory, sometimes you'll see some genes breaking through, like the leopard or the enchi can break through the ivory. But as far as the super fire, I think it doesn't matter what you mix with the super fire. It's an all white snake with black eyes, even with the super black pastel, which is an all black snake, completely black and patternless snake on top of a white snake. I think the super fire would win and you'd end up with a completely white snake. All right, Martinez TV, will you come to a reptile show in Texas? So this year I'm pretty much only hitting reptile shows here in Colorado because I have to come back to take care of my animals. I can only get away just for a little bit as far as doing that. But someday I'd actually like to kind of travel around and do a lot of reptile shows. Of course, I'd have to have some kind of a helper that I'd probably have to hire to take care of all my animals here at the farm. Brianna B, hello, what's up? I have a baby ball python. She ate 5 weeks ago, but hasn't eaten. She looked like she has a stuck shed on her nose, but it's not a stuck shed. What should I do? So yeah, if you have a baby ball python that hasn't eaten in 5 weeks, I would probably go back to a live mouse hopper at that point and try live mice. Usually you can start them on live mice and then you can progress to like a frozen thawed mouse and then eventually transition over to either a live rat or transition over to like a frozen thawed rat. And if any time they get stuck, you know, for example, they won't eat in 5 weeks. That's a long time for a baby ball python. You kind of have to backtrack and go backwards. So right now, if you're trying to feed like a frozen thawed rat, I would probably go back to a frozen thawed mouse and try that maybe for the next feeding. And if they don't take the frozen thawed mouse, then I would go back to a live mouse and try a few live mice. I usually do live mice for maybe about 5 or 6 meals and then transition away to a frozen thawed mouse and then to rats. And if they get stuck, then I'll kind of backtrack to back to the mice. What do you think of the Mario ball python? Haven't done a morph review on the Mario yet. That one's still on my list of ones to do. Little Papa 196, you need to come out with some merch that says kind of crazy. Kind of crazy, yeah. I could actually do that and put it over on Teespring and do some merch over there. As a matter of fact, I heard on YouTube, if you hit 100,000 subscribers, I kind of heard through the grapevine that YouTube will have a specialist that helps you design and sell merchandise. I don't know if that's true or not. That'd be kind of interesting to get some help with some graphic designs and something like that free from YouTube as a YouTuber. That'd be pretty awesome. What's the best to get no stay? I'm not sure what that means. All right, let's see. Andrew, thank you for so much for answering all my questions. Absolutely love your videos. Glad you like my videos. Thank you. All right, let's see. We only got 4 minutes left and I'm still a few questions behind. All right, so I'm going to skim through some of these questions. All right, Nate Robertson, thank you for your input. Have helped me out on my journey. Nice. Snakes Gaming, what is a recessive? A recessive is a gene where you need 2 copies of the gene to see a visual. You can't see 1 copy of the gene. For example, this is actually a pinstripe, just has 1 copy of the pinstripe gene. And obviously you can tell the difference between this and a normal ball python. Whereas in like an albino, if you have just 1 copy of the albino gene, you can't see 1 copy. It looks just like a normal ball python. Ace of Nothing, I never see my ball python in the day. Not sure if it's stressed or just extra sleepy. I used to keep my ball pythons in glass enclosures, and I'd actually walk in here to the reptile room, and every single snake, all in my whole room, would all be hiding in their enclosures in the glass aquariums. Let me tell you, it seems like I don't really like glass aquariums because your ball pythons are always hiding all the time and are stuck in this tiny little little hide in your enclosure, versus in a tub they can still kind of crawl around in the tub. Christopher, hopefully I can meet you at the expo in Pueblo in a few weeks. Yes, I will definitely be there. I'm actually going to show up on Saturday about 2 p.m. and I should be there from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday. And then after that, we're going to go and shoot some pool over at, I think it's called Essential Cues. It's like a sports bar and grill they have like 12 pool tables over there, which would be pretty cool. And then the following day, we're actually going to do a motorcycle ride up in Fountain. It's like the Veterans Defenders of Freedom or something like that up in Fountain, Colorado. Should be a pretty awesome weekend. What is the most expensive morph? I think right now it could be like the Monsoon, which could be one of the most expensive that I've seen currently. Let's see, 2 hours, 59 minutes. All right, we're getting close. Let's see. I work nights. My bedroom is darkened. I keep my snakes in there too. Will their day-night cycle adjust to match mine or no? Good question. I'm not sure how that would work. Just got my first ball python, got a fire hat lavender. Any knowledgeable tips for the first time keeper? Yeah, if you're new into ball pythons, you can watch all my videos on YouTube. I have like 1,200 videos. Most of them are on ball pythons. And pretty much everything I know about ball pythons, I made some kind of a video on just about every topic that I can think of. Do you prefer live or fake plants? I actually don't put any plants in with my snakes. KG5QIA Douglas. Hey, what's up? All right, John Adams. Looking forward to seeing you at the Pueblo show. Nice. Yeah, if I get like swamped with people, just kind of fight your way through and come up and say hi. So sometimes it can get kind of crazy, with so many people crowding around. Sometimes it's hard to meet everybody. And some people kind of are a little bit shy and they kind of stay in the back. But feel free to fight your way up through the crowd. Sometimes it can get crazy at those shows. Dangerous Migs. I got my first Bobby. Congratulations on your bamboo. Let's see. Let's see. All right. All right, so I just had a few questions left here, but I think I want to wrap it up. So we are over 3 hours, 3 hours and 1 minute. So I'm going to wrap it up here. And if you have any more questions, you can actually hit the live stream. I should be doing another live stream next weekend. I do 3-hour live streams on Saturday and Sunday. So I'll probably do it every day up until the reptile show. Of course, I won't be doing live streams. I'll be doing the reptile shows, the pool hall, and the motorcycle rides. So I don't even know if I'm going to have any videos on that weekend. So it'll be pretty fun, just kind of taking a break from YouTube, I guess. Maybe I'll do, kind of have some videos with my phone, or like maybe I'll just put a camera in my pocket or something, and then I'll put a video together later in the week from kind of the activities from that weekend, which would be in about 4 weeks. But other than that, I should be doing live streams every Saturday and Sunday at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So thanks for all your comments. Thanks for the thumbs up. And thanks for all the super chat, which was pretty generous today. That was pretty amazing super chat. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to wrap it up here, and I will see you in the next video.